A fiery, chaotic scene unfolds as a grand palace is engulfed in flames and under attack. Amidst the destruction, figures clash in a desperate struggle. On a battlefield strewn with bodies and blood, cloaked figures fight fiercely. One, seemingly empowered by a fiery aura, charges into the fray. A man in formal attire, his face contorted in a grimace of pain and rage, reaches out with blood-soaked hands. The intensity of the moment suggests a desperate struggle. Amidst a shower of sparks, a fierce warrior with blood-streaked face, wielding 2 swords, clashes with an unseen opponent. His determined expression reveals a furious intensity. A dark and intricate crest, featuring a sword flanked by 2 winged dragons, is revealed. The text proclaims this symbol belongs to the Ragnar clan. A majestic castle stands tall against a snowy backdrop, hinting at the power and influence of its inhabitants. The text describes it as a grand ducal clan guarding the northernmost reaches of the empire. Atop a snowy peak, a cloaked figure stands victorious, sword held high, overlooking a fallen monstrous foe. The scene suggests a hard-won battle in a harsh environment. Zooming in on the fallen monster, its massive horned body is riddled with wounds, while a smaller injured figure lies nearby. The scale of the beast emphasizes the victor's strength. A close-up of a blood-stained sword held by a gloved hand dominates the frame. Text appears, indicating the importance of a special constitution. Against a deep crimson backdrop, droplets of a viscous crimson liquid fall and splash into a pool. The vibrant color and texture suggest something more than ordinary blood. The text, said to have inherited dragon's blood, appears against a swirling backdrop of the same crimson liquid. This connects the unusual blood to the Ragnar clan's lineage. A partial close-up view of what appears to be a dragon's snout emerges from the crimson liquid. Its sharp teeth and glowing eye hint at the power contained within the bloodline. A young man, clad in dark attire and holding a large sword, stands amidst swirling blue energy. The scene suggests an awakening or a surge of power related to the dragon's blood. Against a backdrop of dynamic streaking lines, the text "Everyone except me" appears. This creates intrigue and suggests a contrast between the empowered figure and others. A warrior with long dark hair, a bloody gash on their face and a fierce expression charges into battle. Sword in hand, the motion lines and intense expression convey a desperate struggle. In the aftermath of an explosion, a fallen warrior lies bleeding on the ground, while another figure stands over them, their red-gloved hand visible. The scene suggests a decisive victory for the standing figure. A defeated warrior kneels amidst the embers of a burning landscape. Another figure stands before them, delivering a speech about talent and effort. A close-up of an older man with gray hair and a red scarf covering his lower face reveals a calculating expression. He speaks of a lack of inherited talent within the Ragnar lineage. The older man, revealed to be named Rendon, continues his monologue, his finger raised as if making a point. His expression suggests cunning and manipulation. A young warrior, identified as Theo, confronts Rendon, blood staining his face and clothes. He expresses surprise and questions Rendon's presence. Rendon addresses Theo, his words dripping with condescension, as he mocks Theo's tireless training despite a perceived lack of talent. A close-up of Rendon's eye, narrowing in a sinister glare, emphasizes his manipulative nature. He states that hard work alone will not lead to success. Rendon's cruel laughter echoes through the scene, his face contorted in manic glee. Bathed in a purple light, he revels in Theo's perceived weakness. Theo, his face strained with anger and pain, cries out Rendon's name. The perspective and expression convey a sense of betrayal and impending doom. Theo, seemingly remembering a past event, plants his sword in the ground. He angrily recalls Rendon's betrayal as his sword instructor. Enraged, Theo grips his sword, his face contorted in a furious scream. He accuses Rendon of selling out the palace to their enemies. Amidst the burning backdrop, Theo clashes with a cloaked figure, his sword a blur of motion. The dynamic action highlights the ferocity of the fight. A cloaked assailant strikes Theo, sending him flying backward, blood spraying from the wound. The impact of the blow is palpable. Rendon, standing amidst the carnage, sword dripping with blood, appears unfazed by the violence. He feigns innocence, asking Theo why he blames him. Rendon's gloved hand grabs Theo by the hair, forcing his head back in a brutal gesture of dominance. The action emphasizes Theo's vulnerability. Rendon leans in close to the injured Theo, his face twisted in a cruel smirk. He blames Theo for the destruction and the deaths of their family. Close up on Theo's face, his eyes filled with anger and pain, his breathing heavy. He demands an explanation for the unfolding tragedy. Theo stands amidst the chaos, his cloak billowing, surveying the carnage around him. He questions why his household members are dying. Rendon, holding a sword, stands over a fallen woman and a young girl. He cruelly questions Theo about his mother's death. 2 cloaked figures stand over a fallen woman in a red dress. The scene focuses on the lifeless body, highlighting the brutality of the attack. The fallen woman, now identified as Theo's mother, lies still, her face pale and blood-stained. The scene reinforces the tragic consequences of Rendon's betrayal. A close-up of a young hero, blood splattered on his face, his hair grasped by a red-gloved hand. His expression reflects shock and fear. Rendon stands over the fallen woman, his sword planted in the ground beside him. He cruelly taunts Theo, blaming him for the tragedy due to his perceived weakness. A close-up on Theo's bloodied face, his single red eye filled with rage and despair. The focus on his eye emphasizes his intense emotions. Zooming in on the fallen woman's bloodied face, now lifeless, underscores the devastating loss. Her open eyes add a haunting touch to the scene. Rendon's sinister smile widens as he cruelly reminds Theo of his weakness. The contrast between his expression and Theo's despair is striking. Theo lunges at Rendon, screaming his name. Driven by a desperate need for revenge, his blurred movement reflects his desperation. Rendon's sword flies through the air, spinning end over end, foreshadowing a shift in the fight's momentum. Theo, now disarmed and bleeding, falls through the air, desperately trying to defend himself against an unseen attacker. His vulnerability is emphasized by his downward trajectory. A cloaked figure stands over a fallen Theo, taunting him for talking too much. The figure's posture conveys dominance. Theo, lying injured on the ground, struggles to speak, blood dripping from his mouth. He claims he was simply reminiscing. A close-up on Theo's eye, partially closed and bloodied, as he realizes his impending death. The image conveys a sense of resignation. Theo's internal monologue reveals his despair and acceptance of his fate. He questions if this is truly the end. Theo's thoughts continue as he laments his inability to protect or accomplish anything. The burning backdrop reinforces the sense of loss. Theo's internal monologue expresses his regret and longing for talent. As he watches everything burn away, the scene emphasizes his despair. A close-up on Theo's tearing eye as he reflects on his lack of talent and the consequences. The falling tears convey his profound sadness. Theo continues to lament his lack of talent, wondering if things would have been different. His thoughts emphasize the importance of talent in this world. As embers fly through the air, the scene fades to black, symbolizing Theo's death. The image represents the finality of his defeat. A game-like message appears, starkly declaring "You have died." This abrupt shift in style suggests a supernatural element or a second chance. A blue, futuristic message box appears, informing Theo, "Your trait has activated." Returning to the regression point, this confirms the possibility of a second chance. A sword descends towards Theo's face, but the context is now different, suggesting a training exercise rather than a fatal blow. The image sets up the regression. An older man, holding a wooden sword, observes Theo during training. He comments on Theo's apparent tiredness. Theo, holding a wooden training sword, looks exhausted and disheartened. The older man suggests ending their lesson. The older man turns away, leaving Theo standing alone in a training arena. He comments on Theo's absent-mindedness. Theo, holding a wooden sword, looks confused and disoriented. He questions whether he just died, hinting at the lingering effects of his previous life. The older man smiles gently at Theo, addressing him as young master. He attributes Theo's disorientation to flashbacks of his death. Theo looks down at a glowing, futuristic display that has materialized in his hand. His expression reflects confusion. The text describes death's cruelty even in its final moments. A close-up of Theo's eye, with a glowing rectangular reflection, indicates he is seeing something unusual. The image emphasizes his focus and intrigue. The older man, Rendon, stands in front of Theo, his wooden sword resting on his shoulder. A glowing blue quest box appears before Theo, instructing him to punch Rendon in the face. Theo looks perplexed as he reads the floating quest box. He questions the nature of this tutorial quest. Theo still looks confused as the quest box remains before him, and Rendon looks at him quizzically. Theo wonders if this is how flashbacks are supposed to work, assuming Rendon can't see the box. Theo drops his wooden sword, seemingly preparing to follow the quest instructions. The dropped sword symbolizes his willingness to engage with this strange new reality. Theo clenches his fist, thinking that this may be a divine opportunity to release his frustrations with Rendon. The clenched fist represents his resolve. Theo's fist flies towards Rendon, his eyes glowing with newfound determination. His focused expression suggests a shift in his demeanor. Rendon braces himself for impact. Surprised by Theo's sudden aggression, he accepts the impending pummeling, possibly thinking it's part of a dream. Several figures watch as Theo confronts Rendon, holding a sword. The scene suggests a training scenario or a test. Theo punches Rendon squarely in the face, leaving the older man stunned. The impact is emphasized by the close-up view. Theo stares intently at Rendon after landing the punch, a slight smirk playing on his lips. He wonders about the realistic nature of this dream. Rendon, seemingly angered, grips his wooden sword tightly. His expression shifts from surprise to annoyance. Theo cries out in pain as Rendon retaliates with a swift kick, sending him flying. The scene suggests the consequences of his actions, even in this strange dream. Rendon stands over Theo, who is now on the ground. He reminds Theo that their lesson is over. Theo sits up, rubbing his injured side, confused and in pain. He questions whether he's truly experiencing pain in a dream. Rendon sighs, expressing his frustration at Theo's lack of progress despite his efforts. He mentions the approaching awakening ceremony. A close-up on Theo's face shows a determined expression as he considers the awakening ceremony. The close-up emphasizes his focus on this important event. Rendon criticizes Theo for using his fist instead of a sword, as befits a Ragnar. His disapproving expression reinforces the importance of tradition. Rendon turns his back on Theo and the training arena. Deep in thought, Theo wonders what is happening, puzzled by the unusual events. Other figures in the training arena whisper amongst themselves, mocking Theo's lack of talent and questioning his legitimacy as a Ragnar. Their whispers emphasize Theo's outcast status. The whispering figures continue to criticize Theo, deeming him incompetent even for an illegitimate child. Their judgmental gazes reinforce his isolation. Theo sits alone in the training arena, contemplating his apparent lack of progress. His dejected posture reflects his discouragement. A close-up of Theo's face as a realization dawns on him. His expression suggests a mix of surprise and disbelief. Theo experiences a sensation of pain, which confirms that he's not experiencing a flashback. The focus on his torso emphasizes the physicality of the pain. Theo, looking down at his hand, clenches it into a fist. He acknowledges the realistic sensation of pain, further confirming that this is not a dream. A close-up on Theo's determined eye reinforces his growing confidence that this is not a flashback. The image emphasizes his focus. Theo looks up at the sky, realizing that he has truly returned to the past. His expression conveys both surprise and determination. Theo looks upwards, his face contorted in a mixture of disbelief and excitement. He questions how this is possible. Theo glances down at a glowing blue display, questioning its purpose. His expression reflects his continued confusion about the unusual events. A notification appears, congratulating Theo for completing tutorial quest number 1. This confirms the game-like nature of his new reality. A blue message box appears, announcing the activation of Ragnar's talent. As a reward, this development offers a potential turning point in Theo's journey. A close-up of Theo's eye, now with a glowing, square-shaped reflection, emphasizes the activation of his talent. The image signifies a change within him. A blue message box appears, asking Theo if he will receive the reward now. The question prompts him to make a decision about his newfound power. Theo reaches out to the blue message box, preparing to accept the reward. His determined expression suggests he is ready to embrace this change. Theo's finger presses yes on the glowing blue screen. The action confirms his choice and sets in motion the activation of his talent. A swirling vortex of blue energy envelops Theo, signifying the transformation brought about by the activated talent. The dynamic visual emphasizes the power he's receiving. The blue energy intensifies around Theo, as a message announces that all his stats will increase at a tremendous speed. The visual and textual elements highlight the significant boost in his abilities. Beams of light erupt from the swirling energy surrounding Theo, symbolizing the rapid enhancement of his stats. He wonders what is happening, still awestruck by the unfolding events. A new message appears, announcing the start of the next quest. This implies a structured progression and sets up the continuation of Theo's journey. The scene shifts to a majestic palace, identified as Rose Palace. This change in location suggests a new setting for the upcoming quest. Someone pours tea from an ornate teapot into a delicate teacup. The elegant setting and action suggest a conversation of some importance. An older man in a formal attire sits at a table with teacups. He comments on Theo's lack of talent. The text introduces him as Rendon Harvey, Theo's swordsmanship tutor. Rendon declares his intention to train Theo to the best of his abilities for the awakening ceremony. His confident smile suggests a genuine desire to help. A woman, identified as Cecilia Ragnar, the Lady of the Rose Palace, sits elegantly at a table. She expresses her hope for Theo's progress. Cecilia hands a bag of money to Rendon. She asks him to give Theo more attention. Cecilia smiles warmly, expressing her faith in Theo. Her loving expression suggests a strong mother-son bond. Theo walks down a hallway, a soft glow emanating from his hand. Rendon's internal monologue reveals his doubts about Theo's talent, acknowledging his mother's request. Rendon clutches a bag of money, noting Cecilia's status as a concubine and the strength of bloodlines. His expression suggests a mercenary interest in the situation. Rendon holds the bag of coins, pleased with his exceptional pay and his position as tutor to a member of the Ragnar's direct line. The coins symbolize his motivation. Rendon imagines Theo as his benefactor, grinning at the thought of profiting from the situation. The shadowed figure looming above represents Theo's family or status. Rendon walks down a hallway, his footsteps echoing. He notices someone approaching. Theo runs down the hallway towards Rendon, his expression determined. Rendon questions his presence. Rendon watches Theo approach, clutching the bag of money. His expression suggests growing annoyance. Rendon expresses his frustration with Theo's interruption. His exasperated expression highlights his impatience. Theo continues running down the hallway, determined to reach his destination. Rendon calls him an idiotic loser, highlighting their strained relationship. A woman in a red dress speaks with a servant in a grand hallway. The setting suggests a noble household. The woman, identified as Theo's mother, turns her head as Theo calls out to her. Her expression conveys surprise. Theo stands in the hallway facing his mother. Her question, "Son?" suggests she hasn't seen him for a while or is surprised by his presence. Theo embraces his mother in a heartwarming reunion. She comments on his tiredness from training. Theo's mother looks at him with surprise and concern as he hugs her tightly. She questions his emotional state. Theo hugs his mother, tears streaming down his face. He realizes he has truly returned to the past 10 years earlier. Theo embraces his mother tightly, his face expressing a mixture of relief and joy. The image emphasizes the emotional impact of his return. The scene flashes back to Rendon standing over the fallen bodies of Theo's family. The image reminds us of the tragedy Theo aims to prevent. The scene lingers on the lifeless body of Theo's mother, highlighting the loss he has experienced. The image emphasizes the stakes of his regression. The flashback continues, showing the fallen young hero whom Rendon held captive. The image further reinforces the brutality of the past. Back in the present, Theo's face shows a mixture of determination and sadness. He reflects on his need to change the future. Theo looks down, deep in thought, reflecting on his weakness and the mysterious message window that gave him a second chance. His serious expression highlights his determination. A message box reaffirms the activation of the Ragnar talent. This reminder emphasizes the power now at Theo's disposal. Theo sits on a throne amidst a battlefield, determined to become strong enough to hold his ground in the war for the throne. The scene foreshadows future conflicts and his ambition. Theo hugs his mother tightly, cherishing their reunion. The scene emphasizes the emotional significance of his return to the past. Theo, his eyes narrowed in thought, contemplates his next move. The close-up emphasizes his focus and determination. Rendon walks down a hallway, flipping a coin, thinking about Theo's potential for revenge. His confident demeanor suggests he anticipates future developments. A new quest box appears, instructing Theo to train his body to the limit. This signifies the start of his rigorous training regimen. Theo runs through a training ground, flags waving in the background. The scene establishes the setting for his physical training. Theo runs through the training ground, recognizing his current weakness. He vows to prioritize gaining strength. His focused gaze conveys his single-mindedness. A cloaked figure is introduced as a member of the intelligence agency, Black Word. The figure's shadowy appearance and the agency's name suggest a clandestine organization. A potion labeled Bloody Sword Emperor's Elixir is displayed amongst various ingredients. The text describes its powerful effects on the body. Several ornate books are shown, labeled Secret Manual, hinting at valuable knowledge. The text emphasizes the future revelation of their true worth. Theo performs push-ups, his determined expression reflecting his commitment to training. He recalls the extreme training he had abandoned in his previous life due to his perceived lack of talent. The sun rises over the training ground, symbolizing the passage of time and Theo's ongoing dedication. The sunrise represents a new beginning. Theo runs tirelessly through the training ground, his footsteps leaving small craters in the ground. The impact of his steps emphasizes his increasing strength and speed. Theo runs, a blue glowing object visible in his hand. He realizes the message window and its quests are real. His excited expression reflects his growing confidence. The quest box shows his progress in training his body to the limit has reached 27%. This numerical representation tracks his progress. Other figures in the training ground observe Theo's relentless training, marveling at his stamina. Their surprised expressions emphasize his transformation. Theo swings a wooden sword with incredible speed and force, leaving trails of light and energy. He declares his intention to run and swing more than ever before. Theo continues his intense sword practice, determined to become truly powerful this time. His fierce expression conveys his newfound resolve. The quest box shows his progress has reached 65%. This indicates his significant advancement in training. The scene shifts to a few days later, with dark clouds gathering above the training ground. The change in weather foreshadows a new development. A red-haired woman watches Theo train, yawning from boredom. The contrast between her relaxed attitude and Theo's intense effort is striking. The red-haired woman, introduced as Evelyn Narival, the manager of training ground number 4, comments on Theo's tireless training. Her observation reinforces his dedication. Evelyn, smoking a cigarette, thinks about Theo, recalling his reputation as the imbecile of Ragnar. Her contemplative expression suggests she's reconsidering her initial judgment. Evelyn continues to observe Theo, deep in thought. The ellipsis indicates an inspoken thought or observation about Theo. Theo trains intensely, his expression strained with exertion. He thinks to himself that he's going to die from the effort. The quest box shows Theo's progress at 97%, indicating he's nearly reached his goal. Theo continues his intense training with the wooden sword, his determined expression reflecting his unwavering commitment. The blurred movement emphasizes his speed and power. Theo collapses on the training ground, exhausted. The quest box disappears, suggesting a temporary setback. Theo lies on the ground, gasping for air, realizing the quest progress decreased due to his rest. His panicked expression reflects his frustration. Theo grips his sword tightly, preparing to resume his training. His determined expression shows his refusal to give up. The quest box reappears, showing his progress at 98%. This signifies his return to intense training. Theo swings his sword with renewed vigor, his determined expression reflecting his drive to reach his goal. The dynamic motion lines emphasize his strength. Theo continues to practice his swordsmanship, declaring that he's almost there. His focused gaze conveys his determination. Theo drives his sword into the ground, creating a small explosion of debris. He thinks, a little more. The visual emphasizes his increasing strength. The quest box shows his progress has reached 99%, indicating he's on the verge of completing the quest. Theo trains relentlessly, pushing himself to the limit, the wooden sword a blur in his hand. The debris flying around him emphasizes the intensity of his efforts. Theo continues to push himself, determined to train until he can no longer breathe. His strained expression and glowing eyes reflect his extreme exertion. Evelyn observes Theo's extreme training with a look of concern and surprise. Her reaction suggests she is witnessing something extraordinary. Theo runs through the training ground, leaving trails of motion blur in his wake. The quest box remains at 99%, highlighting the final push he needs to make. A close-up on Theo's sweat-drenched and determined face emphasizes his unwavering commitment to reaching 100%. The sweat dripping from his brow reflects his intense effort. The quest box finally reaches 100%. This marks the successful completion of his second tutorial quest. Theo collapses on the training ground, utterly exhausted, but with a look of triumph on his face. His tears suggest both physical and emotional release. A congratulatory message appears, confirming his completion of tutorial quest number 2. Theo grins triumphantly as a surge of blue energy envelops him, signifying a significant reward. The energy emanating from him suggests a further increase in power. A message box appears, announcing Theo has obtained Dragon Heart as a reward. This powerful acquisition signifies a major step forward in his journey. Another message box appears, awarding Theo 10 years worth of his past life's magic power as a bonus for his fast clear. This unexpected bonus significantly enhances his potential. Theo lies on the ground, exhausted but triumphant. Having received his rewards, his relaxed posture reflects his satisfaction. A blue message box appears, asking Theo if he will receive the rewards now. This prompts another important decision. Theo, still panting from exhaustion, lies on the training ground, considering the prompt to receive his rewards. The image emphasizes his physical exertion. Theo, his eyes glowing with determination, reaches out his hand to accept the rewards. His focused gaze conveys his anticipation. Theo's finger presses yes on the blue screen, initiating the absorption of his rewards. The action signifies his readiness to embrace his enhanced abilities. A message appears, confirming he is receiving the rewards. This anticipates the transformation about to occur. A close-up of Theo's face, with a bead of sweat trickling down. As he begins to absorb the rewards, the image captures the anticipation of the moment. A surge of blue energy erupts around Theo, signifying the integration of the Dragon Heart and magic power. The visual reinforces the transformative nature of the rewards. Evelyn witnesses the sudden surge of energy from Theo, her shocked expression reflecting the unexpected power. Her reaction underscores the magnitude of the change. Theo lies on a bed, seemingly unconscious after the energy surge. The scene suggests a period of rest or recovery. Theo sits up in bed, disoriented, and looks around the unfamiliar room. He questions his surroundings. Evelyn peers into the room, reassuring Theo he's in the break room of training ground number 4. Her concerned expression indicates she's been watching over him. Evelyn enters the room, concerned about Theo's overexertion. She reminds him of her name and position in case he's forgotten. Evelyn explains that Theo lost consciousness while training, and that she moved him to the break room. She continues to smoke her cigarette, maintaining her casual demeanor. Theo looks at Evelyn, grateful for her assistance. He expresses his understanding of the situation. Evelyn, still smoking, looks at Theo thoughtfully. The ellipsis suggests an unspoken thought or observation about Theo's change. Evelyn holds a cup, presumably filled with water, offering it to Theo. The simple act of kindness emphasizes a caring gesture. Evelyn asks Theo if he knows about the Ragnar clan's rule against opening their mana hall before the awakening ceremony. Her question suggests suspicion or curiosity. Theo takes a sip from the cup, questioning why Evelyn is asking about the mana hall rule. His expression suggests a mix of surprise and caution. A close-up on Evelyn's eye, her expression serious, as she explains the mana wave that occurred right before Theo lost consciousness. The close-up emphasizes her focus and the importance of her words. Theo looks at Evelyn with widened eyes as she explains about the mana wave, aligning with the opening of a mana hall. He processes her words, realizing the implication. Evelyn looks at Theo intently, her expression suggesting surprise and suspicion, as she asks if he opened his mana hall. The light on her face emphasizes her intensity. Theo looks away, holding his cup, his expression unreadable. The image leaves the viewer in suspense about his answer. A bright light emanates from Theo's chest as he holds the cup, suggesting the opening of his mana hall is indeed true. The light symbolizes the release of his mana. A smirk plays on the hero's lips, a predatory glint in his eye. The power of a dragon heart, such a tempting thought. Turns out, a mana hall, a wellspring of magical energy, can be nestled right inside a dragon's heart. Now that's what you call a power-up. A glowing figure, arms spread wide, demonstrates the optimal mana hall placement within a dragon heart. Apparently, humans aren't quite as roomy. Ours go in the lower abdomen. Different strokes for different folks, right? Imagine a humanoid figure shattering like glass. That's what a mana hall would do to a human heart. Bam, too fragile, too much power. Ouch. Ethereal figures reach towards a gleaming dragon heart, a visual representation of every warrior's deepest desire. This ultimate power-up is the stuff of legends, and warriors like Ragnar crave it. Two shadowy figures, likely warriors, reach for the same prize, but despite their yearning, humans haven't quite cracked the code on using a dragon heart yet. A radiant light emanates from our hero's chest. He's done it, the coveted dragon heart is his, thanks to some seriously amazing quest rewards. Talk about lucky. The red-haired woman finds herself in a rather uncomfortable situation, face to face with our newly empowered protagonist. A magical glow surrounds her, hinting at her own abilities. Meet Evelyn Nerivol, the red-haired woman and high-ranking but retired swordsman. Now she manages a training ground. Talk about a career change. Perched atop a magnificent white dragon, Evelyn's past is revealed. She was the commanding officer of the white-armored dragon cavalry. This lady is no joke. A clawed hand reaches down, showcasing the formidable presence of the demon dragon. The text emphasizes Evelyn's skills, stating that even the demon dragon adored her. Evelyn, now in armor and holding scales and a sword, is described as fiercely principled. This further paints a picture of her character and hints at potential conflict. The dark-haired young man's face is partially obscured by shadows, highlighting his inner turmoil. Theo ponders the consequences of his secret being discovered by Evelyn, specifically his possession of the dragon heart's mana hall. A silhouetted figure with glowing eyes stands against a vibrant pink background. The text delivers a chilling warning: immediate execution if the secret is revealed. Focusing on the lower half of the dark-haired young man's face, this panel builds suspense. He asks a crucial question: can you handle it? Suggesting a risky proposition. The text continues the previous thought: what if I don't get caught? Further implying a clandestine operation. This intensifies the intrigue surrounding the young man's plans. The cigarette-smoking woman, shown from the shoulders up, calmly reveals that she too is an heir of Ragnar. This revelation adds a new dimension to her involvement in the situation. Theo's face now shows concern, reflecting the seriousness of the woman's words. The text describes a scenario where suspicions about the young man could be seen as defiling the Ragnar name. The woman, with cigarette smoke curling around her face, states, "Those are the rules," emphasizing the gravity of the young man's actions. Her unflinching gaze conveys her commitment to upholding the established order. The young man's face is bathed in red light, his eyes wide with shock and perhaps fear. The woman's question, "Do you know what the punishment is for humiliating an heir?" hangs heavy in the air. Evelyn's eye is partially visible, suggesting his contemplation of the woman's words. The single word execution in the speech bubble confirms the severe consequences. Theo looks at the red-haired woman with an unnerving smirk. He challenges her to verify her suspicions, indicating his confidence in his secret. Evelyn looks surprised, experiencing an unfamiliar sensation. She realizes that she definitely sensed a mana wave, implying the use of magic. Evelyn's hand reaches towards the young man's back. The accompanying text, "Rules are rules," highlights her adherence to protocol regardless of the young man's lineage. The pink-haired woman, eyes glowing with determination, asserts that there are no exceptions to the rules. Her cigarette still hangs loosely from her lips, emphasizing her casual confidence. Evelyn and our hero stand face to face in a dimly lit room. The question mark in the speech bubble suggests uncertainty or surprise on the woman's part. The woman's hand rests on the young man's back, feeling for the presence of a mana hall. She's stunned to find none, which is evident in her exclamation. The woman, her eye wide with shock and a single tear escaping, is clearly taken aback. The text expresses her disbelief. That's not possible. The young man looks up at the woman, his glowing red eyes meeting her gaze. He asks, "No mana hall?" feigning innocence. Kneeling before the young man, Evelyn pleads to be executed. She admits her mistake and her willingness to pay for it with her life. The young man looks down at the kneeling woman with a serious expression. He remarks that there can't be one, implying the impossibility of detecting the mana hall. The image shows an ethereal representation of a dragon's heart mana hall. The text explains the unique nature of a dragon heart mana hall, which can be controlled freely by its user. The young man holds up his hand, palm outwards, as if demonstrating control over something unseen. He explains his ability to hide his mana at will, revealing the secret of his concealed dragon heart. An old white-haired instructor lectures a dark-haired student, our hero, drawing a diagram on a chalkboard. The text indicates that the secret of humans possessing a dragon heart will only be revealed in a few years. The pink-haired woman sits with hands clasped, lost in thought. The text reflects the young man's confidence that she'll never guess his secret. The woman's hand is withdrawn from the young man's back. The word "no need" in the speech bubble suggests she is satisfied, perhaps prematurely, with her investigation. Evelyn's face is partially obscured by shadows, her gaze cast downwards. This panel emphasizes her contemplative state after the interaction. The young man waves goodbye to the pink-haired woman, a smug expression on his face. He believes he has successfully deceived her. The dark-haired young man, with a calculating look, muses on Evelyn's strength. He believes it will be to his advantage to settle her debt. Theo continues his internal monologue. He reveals his concern about the overflow of his mana hall during the opening ceremony. The red-haired woman kneels on the floor as our hero departs. This panel illustrates the traditional respect shown between student and master. Evelyn, smoking and deep in thought, considers the situation. Her expression suggests contemplation about the recent events. Theo walks confidently, his feet emphasized in the panel. He ponders the power he's gained, a dragon heart and magical power from his past life. The young man, striding with purpose, asserts his potential for overwhelming power in this life. His red eyes glow with determination and ambition. A few days later, an older man with gray hair yells instructions. The panel captures a moment of frustration during a training session. The young man practices sword techniques under the older instructor's guidance. He finds it challenging but acknowledges his growing strength, though he finds pretending to be weak tough. Close up on the young man's face, with sweat dripping down his forehead, he expresses his frustration towards Rendon the instructor, labeling him a bastard. The instructor demonstrates a sword technique while the young man looks on. The young man suspects a hidden agenda behind Rendon's training methods. The young man stops the instructor mid-demonstration, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. He connects Rendon to his past life's demise, fueling his suspicions. Theo falls backward, stabbed in the back by Rendon. This panel depicts a flashback to his murder in his past life. The view shifts to the perspective of the hooded figure who attacked the young man in the flashback. The attacker declares the need to uncover the person's identity, foreshadowing a quest for revenge. The dark-haired young man's lips are set in a determined line. He confirms his ability to achieve a goal, adding a layer of intrigue. The older instructor, Rendon, scolds the young man for talking during the lesson. His raised wooden sword suggests a strict teaching style. Theo grabs the instructor's wooden practice sword. He declares the lesson trash, insulting Rendon and escalating the conflict. The young man's eye glows intensely, hinting at rising power. Rendon, taken aback, questions the young man's surprising skill level. Rendon looks surprised and thoughtful, his wooden practice sword resting on his shoulder. The young man's comment about demons and demonic beasts has clearly struck a nerve. The young man takes a step forward. He questions Rendon's hearing, continuing the escalating confrontation. The young man and Rendon face each other, gripping the wooden practice sword between them. Theo threatens to report Rendon's incompetence to a higher authority. Rendon, face contorted in rage, cries out. He realizes the serious repercussions of being reported, particularly if the young man is right. The Camellia Palace, a grand and imposing structure, is shown against a sunset sky. This setting likely plays a significant role in the story's political intrigue. A man with short, light-colored hair bursts excitedly into a room, calling out, "Action!" His energy and enthusiasm hint at upcoming news. The light-haired man excitedly relays the news of a duel between the Bastard of Ragnar and his master next week. Two figures seated at the bar listen attentively. A man with shoulder-length dark hair holds a glass of amber liquid, listening to the news. His posture and averted gaze suggest contemplation and possibly apprehension. The light-haired man grins maliciously. He predicts that the Bastard of Ragnar will be severely injured after the duel. The young man leaps over a table, attacking the light-haired man. This panel depicts the beginning of the duel mentioned earlier. The light-haired man is knocked back, blood splattering from his mouth. This demonstrates the young man's unexpected strength and fighting prowess. The light-haired man lies unconscious on the floor. Two onlookers observe, one seemingly calm and the other gesturing in surprise. The young man stands over the defeated light-haired man, radiating an aura of power. He questions what difference a bastard's disability makes, showcasing his ruthless attitude. The text introduces him as Action Ragnar, one of the four hounds of the North Dark Tiger. A man with silver hair and armor stands in the background, observing the scene. He is introduced as Remington Narciso, the Silver Lion, another of the four hounds of the North. The dark-haired young man's foot hovers over the defeated opponent. It should, he thinks, leaving the rest of his thought unspoken but ominous. A long-haired man with a serious expression enters the room. He is introduced as Ed Troyvan, the Sky Dragon of the Nine Dragons, warning about the potential consequences of letting their guard down. Two men sit at a bar. The younger reassures the older one not to worry too much. This contrasts with the previous panel's warning. The long-haired man stands tall, radiating an air of authority. He expresses concern about the bastard, highlighting the unprecedented nature of the situation. A candle flickers in a lantern, symbolizing the precariousness of the current situation. The text warns that even a small flame can blaze out of control, foreshadowing potential conflict. The long-haired man walks away from two other men seated at a table. He comments that the situation might actually be a good thing, hinting at a hidden agenda. The dark-haired man, with a thoughtful expression, focuses his attention on the instructor. This sets up the next stage of the plot. A large circular training ground is shown from above. This is likely the location of the upcoming duel. The text indicates a week has passed and the scene is set at training ground number 4. This sets the stage for the next sequence of events. A group of men watch from the stands, grinning and murmuring. Their expressions suggest anticipation and perhaps a degree of schadenfreude. The pink-haired woman, Evelyn, stands in the stands, observing the training ground. Her expression is serious and focused. A scarred man with an eye patch stands in the stands. His stern demeanor and military attire suggest he is a person of authority. Theo stands in the training ground, sword at the ready. This marks the beginning of his planned confrontation. Rendon, the older instructor, stands opposite the young man, sword in hand. The text reveals his plan to humiliate and then fire the young man. The young man and Rendon face each other in the training ground. Rendon realizes the situation has escalated beyond his initial intentions. The dark-haired young man looks down, his expression obscured by his hair. He acknowledges the situation and is about to make a decision. A game-like notification appears, indicating tutorial quest number 3. Fight less than Rendon greater than and win. The young man, wielding two swords and surrounded by a red aura, vows revenge against Rendon. His glowing eyes and determined expression convey his resolve. Theo and Rendon clash swords. The young man insults Rendon's skills, mirroring an earlier insult. Rendon's face is contorted in rage and disbelief as he's fired by the young man. This marks a significant shift in power dynamics. Rendon protests his dismissal, arguing about the remaining time on his contract. The young man, looking calm and collected, has seemingly gained the upper hand. Theo thinks to himself, considering his past life and present limitations, he strategizes his next moves. Rendon frantically thinks about his mission, which will fail if he's fired. His face reflects his desperation to retain his position. The young man holds his sword, a blue glow emanating from it. Rendon tries to stop him, arguing it's against the rules. A game-like notification reappears, reminding the reader of the tutorial quest. The young man wonders what is going on as the situation unfolds differently than anticipated. Evelyn, Rendon, and the young man stand on the training grounds. Evelyn suggests they resolve the conflict the Ragnar way, implying a traditional method. Evelyn smiles slyly, seemingly enjoying the current turn of events. Her anticipation for the Ragnar way adds to the suspense. The young man questions Evelyn's meaning. His confused expression contrasts with Evelyn's earlier confidence. Rendon and the young man stand facing each other in the training ground, surrounded by onlookers. Evelyn explains that the Ragnar way means the rule of the strong, implying a duel. Rendon smiles, pleased with Evelyn's suggestion of a sword match. He believes luck is on his side. Theo sweats, realizing the duel will take place in a week. The question marks in his thought bubble reflect his internal struggle. Evelyn grins broadly. Her response, "Of course it's not," implies the duel isn't all right, creating more suspense for the young man. The dark-haired young man realizes his error as Rendon smirks confidently. Theo is worried about not being strong enough yet to beat Rendon. The Colosseum-like arena is shown, filled with spectators, emphasizing the public nature of the upcoming duel. The stage is set for a grand spectacle. A group of spectators discusses the young man's rumored inability to even swing his sword properly. Their expressions and gossip contribute to the narrative of the underdog. The spectators continue their discussion, one excitedly pointing to the center of the arena. They reveal the young man is considered Ragnar's cripple, adding another layer to his underdog status. Rendon stands confidently, sword at the ready. The text describes him as a mid-rank swordsman, reinforcing the perceived disparity in skill levels between him and the young man. Theo stands defiantly. He rejects Rendon's condescending offer to concede, opting to pursue his goal of becoming a one-armed swordsman. Rendon's face is twisted into a sinister grin, revealing his intention to kill the young man. He initially thought of just injuring him, but he has changed his mind. The pink-haired woman, Evelyn's eye is focused on the arena. She observes the duel, thinking to herself that the outcome is already decided. Rendon, standing in the arena, gestures for the young man to attack first. He condescendingly offers the first strike as the young man's teacher. Theo accepts Rendon's offer, sword raised. He charges forward, ready to begin the fight. Rendon grips his sword, prepared for the young man's attack. His focused expression conveys his confidence in victory. Two spectators in the stands react with shock and surprise. Their widened eyes suggest something unexpected has just occurred. A close-up on a spectator's face emphasizes his astonishment and disbelief. Sweat trickles down his temple, indicating his mounting tension. Spectators yell in shock as the young man dominates Rendon. The text highlights the unexpected turn of events, as the young man seems to be winning. Theo attacks fiercely, pushing Rendon back. The text suggests the real possibility of Rendon's death at this rate. Rendon desperately tries to defend himself, his face contorted in a grimace. He realizes the young man is far stronger than anticipated. Rendon's face is shown in close-up, his expression savage and determined. He's confident the imbecile of Ragnar won't defeat him. Rendon's face twists in surprise as sparks fly from his sword, clashing with the young man's. He's caught off guard by the young man's unexpected strength. Evelyn, calmly sipping from a cup, reveals her manipulative tactic. She orchestrated the match to force the young man to quit if he needed to. Theo, his expression sharp and inquisitive, asks how the red-haired woman knows about someone backing Rendon. This reveals a hidden layer of intrigue. Evelyn, holding a cup, explains she had Rendon investigated due to his suspicious teaching style. This reveals her proactive nature and distrust of Rendon. Evelyn looks at the arena with narrowed eyes. Her expression suggests she's analyzing the situation carefully. Rendon again yells for the young man to use a right angle, highlighting his flawed teaching method. The scene returns to the training ground, showing a flashback to the original lesson. The pink-haired woman observes the training session, finding Rendon's methods excessive. She questions the young man's unexpected skill. The dark-haired young man reflects on Evelyn's lack of suspicion in his past life. He wonders if his possession of the mana hall has piqued her interest this time. Evelyn, sipping her drink, reveals the source of her information about Rendon's past. This adds to the mystery surrounding Rendon's actions. Rendon, sword raised amidst a flurry of red sparks, stands alone in a desolate landscape. The text reveals that all traces of Rendon led back to Camellia Palace. Theo looks with a stern expression towards Camellia Palace. This reinforces the palace as a central point of conflict. Our hero suspects the conflict is related to the war for the throne. He expresses his disdain for those involved, calling them damned bastards. The red-haired woman listens intently as Theo explains his concerns and seeks advice. He expresses his struggles against Rendon despite his increased skill. Evelyn, sipping from a mug, encourages the dark-haired man. She suggests that Theo can defeat Rendon, offering a boost of confidence. Back to the arena. Rendon leaps towards the protagonist, his sword raised, and offers a mocking concession. His confident laughter and aggressive posture highlight his arrogance. The dark-haired boy parries Rendon's attack, his sword glowing with energy. The clash of their swords suggests the beginning of a fierce duel. Rendon looks stunned, realizing something is amiss. His expression suggests he's underestimated his opponent. Theo attacks Rendon, his eyes narrowed in concentration. He demonstrates unexpected strength and skill. The two continue their duel, with Rendon on the defensive. The text emphasizes that he's been fending off hero's attacks for a while, highlighting his improvement. Our hero and Rendon clash swords, sparks flying. Rendon expresses surprise at the sudden change in the dark-haired boy's abilities. Rendon, now with visible cuts on his face, is pushed back by Theo's attack. He marvels at his unexpected skill growth. Spectators in the stands react with shock and disbelief as they witness the underdog's prowess. Their expressions range from surprise to awed. Evelyn, observing from the stands, takes a drag from her cigarette. She notes that Rendon doesn't seem to be properly defending himself. Evelyn, from the neck down, continues to watch the duel. She addresses the dark-haired boy, offering to personally train him, foreshadowing further character development. Theo, standing with his back to Evelyn, listens to the offer. The text reveals Evelyn's suggestion to train while ignoring the instructor's lessons. Theo considers Rendon, acknowledging him as a bastard with no right to be a teacher. This justifies his decision to accept Evelyn's offer. Our boy smirks, pleased with the current turn of events. The text reflects his satisfaction with having Evelyn in his debt. The dark-haired boy continues to contemplate the situation. He expresses his concern about Evelyn's motives. Evelyn explains her reasons for helping the main lead. Her closed eyes and slight smile suggest a hidden agenda. Back to the duel. Rendon turns his head sharply, his face contorted in a mix of pain and surprise. This panel suggests he's just taken a significant hit. Theo and Rendon clash swords, sparks flying between them. Rendon expresses surprise at the dark-haired boy's hidden talent, questioning his previous apparent incompetence. Rendon is knocked back by Theo's attack. He questions his motivations and wonders why he hid his talent. The main character demands to know who is backing Rendon. His determined gaze and the crossed swords create a tense atmosphere. Theo kicks Rendon, dodging his attack. He reveals he's been aware of his deception all along. Our hero asks Rendon if Carmelia Palace was behind his actions. His expression is serious and demanding. Rendon, face contorted in shock and pain, asks how the dark-haired boy knows about Carmelia Palace. This confirms the palace's involvement in the plot. Theo, partially silhouetted against the sky, praises Rendon for his honesty. This panel creates a sense of anticipation for his next move. Our player takes a step towards Rendon. He prepares to reveal a painful truth. Rendon looks shocked and distressed as Theo asks him if he knows what it feels like to have an arm chopped off. This chilling question hints at retribution. Rendon, eyes wide with fear and anticipation, braces for an attack. This panel heightens the tension of the fight. Rendon's face is contorted in pain and shock as he is struck. Rendon's arm is severed as the dark-haired boy strikes. This violent act marks a turning point in the fight. Theo and Rendon clash swords once again. Blood spatters from Rendon's wound, adding a visceral element to the scene. Theo, splattered with Rendon's blood, stares him down with determination. This emphasizes his ruthlessness and resolve. Two spectators react with shock and horror at the violence unfolding in the arena. Their expressions convey the brutality of the fight. Theo stands victorious, his sword dripping with blood as Rendon lies defeated. This panel solidifies his victory in the duel. Rendon, clutching his severed arm, screams in agony and rage. He curses the dark-haired boy for his attack. Theo stands over the injured Rendon. He reaffirms his growing strength and his potential to become even stronger. Theo reminds Rendon of his previous words, blaming him. This sets up a moment of retribution. Rendon, injured and bleeding, struggles to understand what the dark-haired boy means. His confusion adds to his vulnerability. Our hero blames Rendon for his own impending death. His shadow looms over him, emphasizing his dominance. Theo continues his vengeful monologue, citing the Ragnar belief in the rule of the strong. His glowing eye emphasizes his cold determination. Rendon pleads for mercy, his face a mask of fear and desperation. This panel underscores the shift in power dynamics. Theo delivers a final blow to Rendon, blood splattering. This marks the culmination of his revenge. The dark-haired boy stands over the fallen Rendon, his sword dripping with blood. His stance and expression convey his victory. A game-like notification appears, congratulating our hero for completing tutorial quest number 3. This reinforces the game-like elements of the story. Two spectators watch in astonishment, their eyes wide with disbelief. Their reaction underscores the unexpected outcome of the duel. Evelyn observes from the stands, a thoughtful expression on her face. Her reaction is more subdued than the other spectators. A scarred, eye-patch-wearing man watches from the stands with a predatory grin. His menacing appearance hints at future conflict. A game-like notification appears, announcing a bonus reward for exceeding the objective. This adds another layer to the game-like system. A game-like notification appears again, prompting the dark-haired boy to receive his reward. This allows for further character progression. Theo stands in the arena, hand to his mouth, seemingly processing the events. Blood splatters the ground around him. Close-up on the main lead's face, smeared with blood. His expression is a mix of fatigue and contemplation. A game-like notification appears, confirming he has received his reward. Theo stands in the arena, sword at his side, looking down at Rendon's body. This panel provides closure to the duel. Two spectators discuss the outcome of the duel, shocked that the imbecile won. Their dialogue reinforces the dark-haired boy's underdog narrative. Theo looks down at Rendon's body, reflecting on his past life suffering. His determined expression suggests a desire for a different future. Our hero clenches his fist, determined to change his fate. His face is streaked with blood, symbolizing his struggle. Game-like notifications appear, revealing the rewards gained. The ability less than observation greater than and 1 year of magic power. This sets the stage for future power-ups. Theo stands in the arena, surrounded by a glowing blue aura. This visual suggests the activation of his new powers. A man with a scarred face screams the dark-haired boy's name, charging towards him. His aggressive posture and furious expression suggest a new challenge. Theo turns to face his new challenger, his expression resolute. This sets up the next confrontation. The scarred man, Julius Ragnar, is introduced as the commander of the white-armored dragon cavalry. This establishes his rank and authority. Theo stares at Julius, shocked by his presence. His thoughts betray his surprise and concern. Spectators in the stands express their astonishment at Julius's appearance, realizing his high rank as one of the 9 dragons. Their dialogue provides exposition about Julius's position. Evelyn wipes sweat from her brow, nervous about Julius's dramatic entrance. She comments on the destruction Julius caused to the flooring. Julius approaches our hero, his imposing figure casting a shadow over him. This panel emphasizes the power difference between them. Theo stares in shock and confusion as Julius approaches, droplets of sweat and blood on his face. He questions his own actions and the situation. A man with an eye patch lets out a boisterous laugh, his excitement practically radiating from the panel. The sound of his laughter seems to crackle in the air, emphasized by speedlines. The eye patch-wearing man expresses his approval as the swordsman behind him seems surprised by a question. It appears the swordsman has achieved something unexpected, catching the attention of the armored figure. The swordsman is asked if they killed someone named Julius, a topic deemed disrespectful by the armored man. However, the man quickly dismisses the concern based on rumors. The eye patch-wearing man roars with laughter once more. His ferocious expression hints at a wild and unpredictable personality. A hand grips the shoulder of the swordsman, our hero, the fur trim of the sleeve suggesting authority. The swordsman winces, caught off guard by the sudden contact. The armored man extends an invitation to the swordsman to join the prestigious white-armored dragon cavalry. The swordsman stands silently, seemingly contemplating the offer. A pink-haired individual with a thoughtful expression brushes their hair back, a faint smirk playing on their lips. The falling snow adds a touch of melancholy to the scenes. Two onlookers gasp in shock and disbelief. They question how the imbecile of Ragnar could have been scouted into the white-armored knights, highlighting the swordsman's underdog status. A hooded figure addresses someone with a simple EY, initiating a conversation. The second person reacts with a surprised "H-ha," turning their attention to the speaker. The hooded figure asks the other if they've ever heard of an apprentice swordsman being scouted before the awakening ceremony. He raises a finger to emphasize his point, a questioning look on his face. The hooded figure receives a hesitant, "Not that I know of," as a reply. The soft light illuminates their faces, emphasizing the seriousness of the conversation. The first hooded figure definitively states that such a thing hasn't happened before. He explains that it's impossible to gauge true potential before the Mana Hall opens after the ceremony. The speaker, a silver-haired individual, concludes that even the great Julius Ragnar can't be certain of potential before the awakening ceremony. Their serious expression hints at the importance of this tradition. The swordsman stands before the armored figure, contemplating the implications of the scouting offer. He wonders if the demon dragon saw his latent potential. Standing before the armored knight, our hero respectfully declines the offer to join the dragon cavalry. The falling snow frames the scene, adding a sense of finality to the decision. Theo's face reveals a mix of determination and resolve after refusing the prestigious invitation. The light catching their earring adds a small glint of defiance. The eye patch-wearing man with a curious hum reacts to Theo's decision, his eye patch adding to his enigmatic aura. Small bird-like symbols float around him, adding a whimsical touch. A silver-haired individual reacts with surprise, uttering a confused "huh." The bird symbols continue to flutter around, suggesting a light-hearted atmosphere despite the unexpected occurrence. A pink-haired character looking slightly perplexed holds a hand up as if interrupted. The bird symbols linger, creating a stark contrast with their contemplative expression. Two bald figures and another with dark hair stare in shocked silence, their mouths agape. Droplets of sweat fly from their faces, indicating their intense surprise. The swordsman stands with the armored knight, a splash of blood on the ground indicating a recent conflict. The somber atmosphere and grand architecture suggest a significant event has taken place. Two figures engage in hushed conversation, one asking, "Have you heard?" The second figure starts to share the news about the young master Theo, referring to him as the imbecile. The use of this derogatory term emphasizes the disdain some hold for him. A person in a maid outfit expresses concern, asking if something is really okay. The sword held in the foreground and the imposing castle in the background suggest a powerful family or organization is involved. A voice dismisses the previous concern, implying that a weak master is to blame for their defeat. The speaker's dismissive tone and stance suggest a lack of empathy. The narrator recounts the swordsman's earlier refusal of the dragon cavalry invitation. The swordsmen felt their skills were not enough, demonstrating a surprising level of humility. A muscular tattooed individual, introduced as a Ragnar, is addressed about their humility, something considered rare. The speaker's tone seems both surprised and impressed. The scene shifts to Camellia Palace, its grand facade and blue hue conveying a sense of elegance and power. A close-up of a woman's lips and neck as she speaks, declaring that things have become complicated. The elegant attire suggests a high-ranking individual within Camellia Palace. A woman, identified as Emil Ragnar of Camellia Palace, peers through a window with a concerned expression. She voices her disbelief about someone named Rendon's demise. A woman in a dress speaks to Emil, reassuring her not to worry. The partially obscured figure speaking to Emil adds an air of mystery. Emil's attendant reminds her that she assigned Rendon due to his lack of skill, implying that his death is of little consequence. Emil's sharp expression suggests she's calculating. A man with long blonde hair, introduced as Sky Dragon Ed Troyvan, is simply referred to as brother. The grand attire and imposing presence suggest he's a powerful figure. In a lavish room, Ed is informed about the demon dragon personally reaching out to Theo. The woman in the elegant dark dress adds to the intrigue of the conversation. The woman expressing concern in the previous panel continues. She worries about Theo becoming prominent and interfering with plans regarding the Rose Palace. A man with brown hair adjusts his collar, questioning the excess worry. He doesn't believe the clan head will be interested in Theo, dismissing him as insignificant. The brown-haired man asserts that their plans can continue as normal if Theo remains powerless. The presence of two other individuals listening to him suggests they're part of some scheme. The brown-haired man, Axion, reiterates his belief in Theo's powerlessness, waving his hand dismissively. He questions how much someone like Theo could have truly changed. A close-up of Ed's face with intense glowing eyes. He knows this man. The scars on Ed's face and the intense gaze convey a dangerous and formidable aura. Holding an envelope, Axion decides to play with our hero and make them understand their place. The character's dual-wielded swords and sinister smile suggest a confrontational approach. The scene returns to the outdoor area, a flag waving in the snowy weather. This establishes the location for the upcoming encounter. Theo thanks Evelyn for the training. Evelyn notes that joining the white-armored dragon cavalry would have been preferable, creating intrigue about the earlier refusal. Evelyn questions why our hero declined the dragon cavalry invitation. Her tone is more curious than judgmental, inviting an explanation. Theo explains that the white-armored dragon cavalry was a dream in his past life. The image of a majestic dragon soaring through the sky emphasizes the cavalry's prestige and power. The main protagonist reflects on his decision, stating that joining the cavalry now would be detrimental. The close-up of his face, with a determined gleam in his eye, indicates a carefully considered strategy. Theo stands amidst a group of reaching hands, symbolically representing the opportunity to join the white-armored dragon cavalry. He recounts not having undergone the awakening ceremony, justifying his refusal of special privileges. Our hero states that he doesn't feel ready for the cavalry, and is content with Evelyn's training. His expression is calm and resolute, suggesting genuine humility rather than false modesty. Evelyn agrees with Theo's decision, but notes that the commander will be disappointed. Her expression is neutral, hinting at possible future consequences. A close-up of Theo's eye reveals a flicker of intent. The word observation suggests he's using a special ability or skill. The focus shifts back to Evelyn Nerival, her profile highlighted against a glowing blue backdrop. Her status as a former deputy commander of the white-armored dragon cavalry is revealed. Evelyn's information box provides details about her past and her admiration for Theo's humility and energy. This further emphasizes Theo's impact on those around him. Theo thinks to himself that the observation skill is useful. He realizes its potential advantages for the future, gripping his sword with newfound resolve. Theo's eye is highlighted as he looks to the side, a curious escaping his lips. This hints at him noticing something or someone approaching. Someone approaches Theo and Evelyn, addressing Theo respectfully. The formal approach and the newcomer's long stride suggest an official or important visitor. The newcomer introduces himself as Sybil Drea from the Southern Inspection Post, stating he has something to discuss with Theo. His serious demeanor and bandaged hands hint at a warrior's life. Theo and Evelyn react to Sybil's appearance, Evelyn questioning who this scary individual is. Theo observes Sybil, activating his skill to gather more information. Sybil's info box appears, revealing his title, rank, and desire to spar with Theo. His somewhat sinister smile and furrowed brows suggest an intense personality. Evelyn and Theo are surprised by Sybil's request to spar with our hero, questioning his intense stare. Evelyn's protective stance indicates concern for Theo. The last tutorial quest begins for Theo, adding a game-like element to the narrative. This marks a turning point in the story. Theo's tutorial quest objective is revealed: to escape the title of Imbecile of Ragnar. The progress bar shows he's only 28% of the way there, emphasizing the challenge ahead. The setting returns to the training grounds as Sybil passionately declares his wish to follow Theo. The flag atop the building reinforces the location and its significance. Sybil admits he's ignored Theo until now. Believing the title of Ragnar's imbecile was fitting, his determined expression suggests a change in perspective. Theo grips his sword, gritting his teeth. He thinks, "This bastard," revealing his annoyance at Sybil's previous dismissal. Sybil explains that he observed Theo's dedicated training every morning, admiring his perseverance. The pink hearts surrounding Sybil contrast sharply with the serious tone of his words. Sybil reveals the results of Theo's training, creating a sense of anticipation for the upcoming display of skill. The onlookers appear impressed and awed, their silhouettes adding to the dramatic effect. Theo stands atop a defeated opponent, demonstrating his growth and surprising skill. The scattered debris adds a sense of impact to the scene. Sybil enthusiastically asks Theo for the opportunity to spar. Having been inspired by Theo's rise from being called an idiot, he kneels respectfully, his sword held before him. Theo stands before Sybil as he offers a duel. Evelyn, the pink-haired character, observes the scene, creating a silent tension between the three. Theo contemplates Sybil's request, acknowledging that he would normally question his intentions. A bead of sweat trickles down his face, suggesting internal conflict or concentration. Sybil's info box reappears, but this time, his status shows strongly respects Theo, marking a significant shift in his attitude. He stands ready with his sword, awaiting Theo's response. Theo explains his expectation that others would challenge him after he defeated Rendon and gained Lord Julius's attention. Our hero continues, surprised that others are now willing to follow him. He realizes that people still respect the Ragnar name, despite his initial assumption. The main hero acknowledges that he'll need his own followers to become the clan head. This reveals his ambition and long-term goals. Theo considers his current quest to shed his unfavorable title, recognizing it as the final tutorial. The quest notification hovers in the air, reinforcing its importance. Theo expresses his determination to use this new opportunity to finally escape the label of Imbecile of Ragnar. He seems resolved to completely change his life. Theo approaches Evelyn, requesting a moment to speak privately. Evelyn agrees to Theo's request, inviting him to demonstrate his skills. Theo formally introduces himself, stating his master's name is Evelyn Nerival. This marks a formal beginning to his demonstration and acknowledgement of his training. Evelyn observes Theo, a slight smirk on her face. Her relaxed posture suggests confidence in her student's abilities. Sybil enthusiastically declares his name and lineage, highlighting his swordsmanship inherited from the Corre clan. He holds his sword with pride, eager to prove himself. Sybil launches his attack on Theo, a blur of motion and determination. This marks the beginning of their highly anticipated spar. Their swords clash, sparks flying, as the two engage in a fierce exchange of blows. The speed lines and impact effects emphasize the intensity of the fight. Sybil comments on Theo's speed, acknowledging his quickness. Despite being called an idiot, he expresses confidence in his own speed, setting up a test of abilities. Swords clash again as the fight intensifies. Sybil recognizes Theo's skill as the real deal, acknowledging his growth and mastery. Theo thinks, "This is an idiot?" Seemingly underwhelmed by Sybil's attack, the question mark highlights his internal doubt about Sybil's abilities. Theo easily dodges Sybil's attack, declaring the fight easy. The dynamic pose and motion blur showcase Theo's superior agility. Sybil coughs up saliva, clearly impacted by Theo's counterattack. The panel emphasizes the force of the blow. Theo lands a powerful blow on Sybil, sending a shockwave through the ground. The impact effect highlights the decisive moment in their duel. Sitting on the ground defeated, Sybil admits his loss and thanks Theo. His expression is one of respect and acceptance. Theo sheathes his sword, acknowledging the good fight and expressing that he learned a lot. This suggests a mutually beneficial spar. Despite the clear victor, Theo's eye narrows as he glances towards the side. The hum indicates he's contemplating something new. Our hero wonders if he can use observation on himself. The vertical lines framing his face create a sense of focus and introspection. Theo uses observation on himself and it works, revealing his stats and information. The "it works" confirms the success of his self-assessment. The main character has perceived his stats, which will now be represented by numbers. This introduces a new layer of game-like mechanics to the story. Theo assesses his abilities, categorized under talent, and contemplates gaining more. He sees the potential for growth and improvement through these quests. Our boy expresses his excitement at being able to check his own stat values. His confident smile suggests he's gaining a better understanding of his own strengths and weaknesses. Theo notes his high magic power thanks to his past life's magic and the dragon heart. He expresses confusion over his negative luck stat, setting up a future point of intrigue. The young swordsman ponders his negative luck, wondering if he is cursed. His bewildered expression and the sweat on his face suggest growing frustration. Theo wonders if his bad luck in his previous life is connected to his current negative luck stat. The display of his stats emphasizes the significance of this question. Protagonist decides he needs to find a way to improve his luck. He stands amidst a crowd of people, perhaps contemplating how their opinions might influence his fate. Theo looks to the side, a curious hum escaping his lips. This suggests he's noticed something or someone of interest within the crowd. Our hero stands before a group of figures, seemingly awaiting their next move. The figures' uniform attire suggests they are members of a specific swordsman's group. Evelyn states that even though Rendon was weak, he was still a mid-rank swordsman, highlighting the significance of Theo's victory. Her serious expression suggests she's analyzing the situation. Evelyn acknowledges Theo's defeat of Rendon and the commander's approval. Theo stands amidst a group, implying news of his victory has spread. Evelyn explains Ragnar's rule of the strong: either become envious or admire. The shadowed figures react to Theo's recent display of power. Evelyn observes the crowd, noting that those gathered seem to admire Theo rather than envy him. A slight smile plays on her lips, perhaps amused by their reaction. The onlookers react positively to Theo's victory, confirming the rumors of his growth. Their excited expressions and dynamic poses suggest they're eager to see more. The crowd continues to marvel at Theo's strength, one of them wondering if they could have even blocked his sword. This underlines the impact of his victory. A member of the crowd, introduced as Iad Nalan, expresses his desire to spar with Theo. His confident grin and the information box reveal his rank and talent. Theo gazes at the sky, a contemplative expression on their face. The falling snow adds a peaceful ambiance to the scene. Iad Nalan calls out Theo's name, surprising him with his familiarity. Iad's eager expression suggests he's a fan of Theo's. Theo challenges Iad to come forward and spar, a predatory grin appearing on his face. The glint in his eye suggests he's eager for the challenge. Iad Nalan accepts Theo's challenge, introducing himself formally and announcing his double ascension swordsmanship. His enthusiasm and formal introduction create a sense of anticipation for the duel. Theo and Iad rush towards each other, their intense gazes locked. This dynamic panel captures the initial clash of their wills and swordsmanship styles. Theo's basic swordsmanship proficiency increases as he continues to spar with Iad. This reinforces the game-like mechanics of the story. Iad attacks with renewed vigor, his sword aimed at Theo. The speed lines and determined expression signal his continued efforts despite the earlier increase in Theo's proficiency. Theo and Iad continue their fierce duel, their swords a blur of motion. The intense action and angled perspective highlight the dynamic nature of the fight. Theo parries Iad's attack, his focused gaze locked on his opponent. The light reflecting off his eye adds a sharp intensity to the scene. Iad attacks with his dual swords, the red glow emanating from his gauntlets adding a mystical element to his swordsmanship. The speed lines create a sense of motion and power. Theo's changing heart swordsmanship proficiency increases. He continues to gain experience and improve his abilities through these battles. Iad cries out in surprise as Theo gains the upper hand. The smoke rising from his sword indicates the power of Theo's attack. Iad admits defeat, dropping his sword. Theo gains Iad Nalan's approval, which increases his luck stat. Theo notes his luck increase from Iad's approval, questioning if his reputation is being tracked as well. This suggests a connection between his reputation and his in-game progress. Theo gains experience points from his duel. This notification reinforces the game-like progression system and the tangible benefits of each battle. With renewed determination, Theo prepares for his next battle, then indicates his eagerness to continue pushing forward. Theo and another swordsman clash, sparks flying as their swords meet. Theo thinks to himself, I just need to keep fighting. Theo clashes swords with Banat Ramiro, gaining their approval. The fiery impact visually represents the intensity of their duel. Theo gains the approval of Eric Moran, and his luck stat increases again. The radiant burst of light accompanying his victory emphasizes his growing strength. Theo gains Manfred Nonbert's approval, further increasing his luck stat. His dynamic pose and the light trail suggest skillful swordsmanship. Theo earns Manuel Noir's approval and another luck increase. The focus on the swords highlights the importance of skill in gaining recognition. Theo battles Viro Perenk, gaining their approval and a boost to his luck. Viro's strained expression suggests he's struggling against Theo's relentless attacks. Theo clashes swords with Daniel Riemann, gaining their approval and an increase in luck. Daniel's intense focus reflects the challenge of facing Theo. Theo catches his breath, sweat dripping from his face, exhausted but resolute. The repetition of his panting emphasizes his physical exertion. Theo, standing among several defeated opponents, calls out for the next challenger. His assertive next and confident posture suggest he's far from finished. Theo reflects on the numerous battles he's fought, a hint of weariness in his expression. He checks his quest progress, likely feeling frustrated by the slow advancement. Despite his efforts, Theo's quest progress has only increased by 1%. He wonders if it's due to the approval he's already received, recognizing a potential flaw in his strategy. Theo considers his options for increasing his quest progress, contemplating the need for stronger opponents or a more public display of skill. The defeated figures behind him emphasize the challenges he's already overcome. Evelyn asks Theo if he's all right, noticing his exhaustion. He replies that he will rest when he needs to, but not yet, demonstrating his determination. Remington Narcio, identified as the Silver Lion, steps forward to challenge Theo. The dramatic lighting and his imposing figure suggest a formidable opponent. The onlookers react with surprise at Remington's appearance, recognizing him as one of the Four Hounds of the North. This title indicates his high rank and formidable reputation. The identities of the Four Hounds of the North are revealed: Hulkus Lanike, Ray Ragnar, Remington Narcio, and Axion Ragnar. This panel establishes them as key figures within the Ragnar clan. The narrator explains the significance of the Four Hounds title, identifying them as the strongest of their generation within the Ragnar clan. The shadowy figure of the brown-haired man, Axion, adds to the sense of intrigue surrounding this group. Remington explains he came early to observe Theo's swordsmanship before the awakening ceremony. He holds his sword at the ready, his eager expression suggesting anticipation for the duel. Remington Narcio's information is displayed, identifying him as the deputy clan head of Narcio and an extreme hard worker. This suggests a formidable opponent for Theo. Theo, described as the 31st son of the Great Guardian of the North, faces Remington. This formal introduction highlights the contrast in their lineage and status. Theo reflects on the unexpected encounter with Remington, a sword genius he respects. The scratches on his face are a testament to his previous battles. Theo looks forward to the battle with Remington. Setting aside his quest for a moment, the intensity in his eyes reflects his eagerness for the challenge. Remington draws his sword, his aura manifesting as a glowing lion. The light emanating from him and the visual effect emphasize his power. A sudden quest update appears: defeat Remington. This unexpected objective adds a new dimension to the duel. Theo and Remington clash swords, sparks flying between them. The impact effects and speedlines emphasize the force of their encounter. Theo's quest updates, questioning if he can defeat one of the Four Hounds of the North. The increase in his progress suggests that Remington is a significant opponent. A bright flash of light erupts between Theo and Remington, indicating a powerful clash. The light obscures their figures, adding a sense of mystery and anticipation. Theo stares intently at Remington, sweat dripping from his forehead. The impact of their duel is evident in his expression. Remington, equally focused, prepares for the next exchange. The slight damage to his sword highlights the intensity of the fight. A piece of Theo's sword breaks off, flying through the air. This visual cue suggests Remington is gaining the upper hand. Evelyn observes the duel with a serious expression, watching a piece of Theo's sword fall to the ground. The falling debris adds to the tension of the moment. Sybil and the other onlookers react with shock and disbelief to the events unfolding. Their wide eyes and open mouths express their astonishment. Theo's sword shatters, falling to the ground with a clang. The impact is accentuated by the motion lines. Remington holds Theo's broken sword against his neck, signifying his victory. The setting sun casts a dramatic light on the scene. The crowd reacts in disbelief to Remington's victory over Theo. The dark shading on Theo's face adds to the dramatic tension. Sybil and another onlooker express disbelief at Remington's victory. The other onlooker calmly states it's the obvious result, contrasting with Sybil's emotional reaction. Remington acknowledges the impossibility of Theo defeating one of the four hounds. His confident stance and glowing eyes suggest he still holds his own strength in high regard. Despite the seeming impossibility of Theo's victory, Remington is impressed by Theo's fighting spirit. Sybil and another figure observe the interaction with keen interest. Suddenly, Remington formally concedes, acknowledging his defeat to Theo. The other onlooker watches impassively, possibly processing the unexpected outcome. Remington thanks Theo for the duel, his demeanor calm and respectful despite his loss. Theo looks on, perhaps surprised by Remington's reaction. Remington explains his defeat, citing Theo's worn-out sword and exhaustion. He acknowledges Theo's advantage, demonstrating a strong sense of honor. Theo reflects on Remington's concession, realizing he lost the moment his sword broke. Theo's confident smirk suggests he's learned a valuable lesson about the realities of combat. Remington looks thoughtfully towards the horizon, a slight smile on his face. The warm colors of the sunset create a sense of peace after the intense duel. Theo and Remington shake hands, a gesture of mutual respect and acknowledgement after their duel. The tight grip and the lighting on their hands emphasize the significance of this moment. Theo and Remington express their hopes for a proper duel in the future. The surrounding onlookers bear witness to this display of sportsmanship. Two onlookers marvel at Theo's achievement, his acknowledgement by one of the four hounds. The exaggerated expressions emphasize their astonishment. Theo's quest progresses as a result of his victory over Remington. The notification highlights the tangible impact of his achievements. Evelyn, observing the outcome of the duel, smiles subtly. The warm lighting and relaxed atmosphere suggest satisfaction with Theo's progress. Theo reflects on Remington's strength, sweat dripping down his face, a sign of the intense battle. His gaze suggests admiration and respect for his opponent. Remington smiles slightly, looking towards the light. This adds a sense of serenity to his character after the duel. Theo reflects on how much he's grown through these duels. He realizes he's stronger than in his past life but still feels he's lacking. Theo acknowledges his shortcomings despite his progress. His serious expression suggests a burning desire for further improvement. Theo and Remington stand opposite each other, the duel having concluded. Theo reflects on the experience gained, noting the improvement in his luck and reputation. Theo's quest progress is updated, but he expresses disappointment at the limited increase. This suggests the need for a different approach to completing the quest. Theo contemplates his quest, considering different stages to gain approval. He acknowledges his need for a new strategy to achieve his goals. Remington addresses Theo, their conversation marking a shift in their dynamic after the duel. Theo looks up in surprise, indicating an unexpected turn of events. Remington reveals he didn't come just to duel Theo. He holds a letter, suggesting a more formal purpose for his visit. Remington invites Theo to the Sealed Dragon Society, the intense red background hinting at the group's secretive nature. The shadowy figures add to the air of mystery. Sybil reacts with astonishment to Remington's invitation. He describes the Sealed Dragon Society as a high society group for the select few. Sybil's astonishment continues, surprised that Remington is personally inviting Theo. The close-up on the letter emphasizes the formality and significance of the invitation. Theo contemplates the invitation to the Sealed Dragon Society, questioning his worthiness. A single tear rolls down his cheek, conveying a mix of hope and uncertainty. Theo questions if someone like him can join the prestigious Sealed Dragon Society. He seems unsure of his place among such a select group. Remington dismisses Theo's self-doubt, assuring him he is more than qualified. His decisive gesture and confident tone leave no room for argument. Remington downplays the seriousness of the Sealed Dragon Society, describing it as a social group. Sybil, in the background, reacts with frustration at not being invited. Theo reflects on Remington's motive for the invitation, which he doesn't fully understand. He acknowledges the group's connection to Axion, a key figure introduced earlier. Our hero thinks to himself about the Sealed Dragon Society being filled with people who look down on him, seeing it as the perfect environment for his quest. The crumbling facade of the building symbolizes the challenges he anticipates. Theo accepts Remington's invitation with a simple thank you. The focus on the exchange of the letter emphasizes the finality of his decision. The main character accepts the invitation, confirming his participation in the Sealed Dragon Society. His slight smile suggests he's planning something. Theo's quest progress updates after accepting the invitation. "Good job, hero." Remington, seemingly pleased with a recent turn of events, offers encouragement and an open invitation for questions, creating a sense of camaraderie. Two others stand attentively, listening to the Silver Lion's words. The next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks out, leaving a period of anticipation hanging in the air. The pink-haired figure, now holding a cigarette, takes a contemplative drag. Lost in thought, the cigarette smoker exhales a stream of smoke, the hazy tendrils mirroring the uncertainty of the coming weeks. A silent panel emphasizes the weight of their thoughts. Moments later, the scene shifts to the majestic Rose Palace, its grand architecture hinting at the important events it has witnessed and will soon host. The caption confirms the location change, emphasizing the palace's significance. Inside the palace, a woman in a flowing red dress greets someone with enthusiastic open arms and a joyful cry of, "My dear son." The speed lines and wide stance convey her excitement. Startled by the sudden greeting, the son, his back to us, turns to face his mother with a surprised expression. He acknowledges his mother with a polite, "Oh, mother." A line of servants, laden with various items, stands at attention as the son, Theo, walks towards a woman in a red dress, presumably a more formal greeting from his mother. Confused, our boy wonders what the occasion is. The mother, beaming with pride, reveals the exciting news. Her son has been invited to the prestigious Scaled Dragon Society. She excitedly details the esteemed members of the society. Tailors fuss over the hero, taking his measurements for what appears to be new attire. The scene emphasizes the importance of appearances, hinting at the scrutiny he will face within the Scaled Dragon Society. As the tailors continue their work, the scene focuses on a pair of hands carefully adjusting a measuring tape across Theo's chest. The tight frame creates a sense of intimacy and anticipation. The mother, with a knowing smile, assures her son that while etiquette might not be his forte, she can certainly assist him with his attire and demeanor. Her expression is confident and reassuring. The mother tenderly helps her son with his new attire, her touch gentle and supportive. She reminds him of her past as an actress, implying her expertise in matters of presentation. With a hint of melancholy, the mother expresses her joy at being able to help her son. A tender moment between them. The son's lower face is shadowed, adding to the somber tone. The scene shifts to Theo standing on a rocky outcropping, bathed in a crimson light. The caption labels him as the illegitimate child of a commoner concubine, highlighting his social standing. The memory of his mother's guilt over his label washes over him, the red background symbolizing the pain and shame associated with his birth. The mother is shown covering her face, her distress evident. The narrative text emphasizes the mother's guilt, and that the label was not her fault, creating sympathy for her character. Theo reflects on the hardship his mother must have endured due to his status. The contemplative tone suggests a deep understanding and empathy for his mother. The son gently embraces his mother, offering comfort and support. The warm lighting and tender gesture convey the strong bond between them. Holding his mother close, the Theo reassures her of his capabilities. The mother's face is hidden, focusing the attention on the hero's determination. With a determined glint in his eye, the son's resolve hardens. The close-up on his eye emphasizes his newfound focus and ambition. Theo tenderly pats his mother's shoulder, a gesture of reassurance and affection. The focus on his gloved hand highlights the subtle yet powerful act of comfort. Standing before his mother and her attendants, the son declares that there's no need for her to worry anymore. The composition emphasizes his newfound confidence and determination. The son declares his intention to not just join the Scaled Dragon Society, but to pulverize it. His fierce expression and the glowing effect around him suggest a hidden power. 2 weeks pass, and the night of the Scaled Dragon Society banquet arrives. The imposing structure, now under a night sky, sets the stage for the impending confrontation. A silver-haired man stands before a horse-drawn carriage, the setting sun casting long shadows. A closer look at the silver-haired man reveals a surprised expression. Someone approaches the carriage, the focus on their feet and the ground conveying their purposeful stride. The textured pavement adds a sense of realism to the scene. Theo appears in elegant attire, greeted with cheers and well wishes from the onlookers. He exudes confidence and poise. The sun smiles gently, the warm lighting accentuating his transformation. The white fur trim on his collar adds a touch of luxury. The silver-haired man, now identified as Remington, greets the son, known as Theo, remarking on his striking change in appearance. Remington's playful tone suggests a familiarity between them. Theo, thinking to himself, acknowledges his physical transformation after 2 weeks of diligent training. He appears satisfied with the results of his efforts. Theo recalls Remington's daily visits and the growing camaraderie between them. Along with the unexpected gain of followers, Remington's enthusiasm is palpable as he suggests training together. A group of followers greets Theo with enthusiastic shouts and raised swords, displaying their loyalty and eagerness to serve him. The dynamic angles and motion lines emphasize their energy. Evelyn expresses her exasperation at the unexpected hassle of managing Theo's newfound followers. Our hero appears equally unimpressed, setting a humorous tone. Remington calls out to Theo, signaling his arrival at the banquet. The line of figures in the background emphasizes the size and scale of the gathering. Sitting within the carriage, Theo reflects on the tiring 2 weeks leading up to the banquet. His expression is a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. Remington informs Theo that this is his first formal banquet. Theo confirms this, adding a touch of nervousness to the anticipation of the event. Remington reassures Theo, expressing his confidence in Theo's ability to perform well. He hints at a potential complication, setting up a sense of foreboding. Theo looks at Remington inquisitively, prompting him to continue his thought. The close-up on Theo's eyes emphasizes his curiosity and anticipation. Remington explains that Axion, a mischievous friend, was the one who extended the invitation and arranged the banquet. He urges Theo not to judge Axion too harshly. Theo processes the unexpected revelation that Axion, not Remington, was behind the invitation. He appears contemplative, wondering about Axion's motives. Settling into a seat, Theo admits that things seem to be going suspiciously well, expressing a sense of unease. His smug expression suggests he anticipates a hidden motive. The carriage rolls away, leaving the grand palace behind. Theo muses on the upcoming events, expecting to be insulted, but also relishing the opportunity. Introducing Axion Ragnar, the Hound of the North, who holds a glass of ice and appears to be plotting something sinister. He anticipates having fun with Theo, referring to him as a new toy. The carriage arrives at its destination. The ornate rooflines of the building hint at the importance of the location. The carriage wheel comes to a stop, the scene focusing on this detail to signify the end of the journey. The sound effect adds to the realism. The carriage has arrived, and the driver announces their arrival to young Master Theo. The focus on the stepping foot signifies Theo's impending entrance. Theo exits the carriage, followed by Remington. The grandeur of the carriage and their attire emphasize their social standing. Theo, his back turned, walks purposefully towards the Camellia Palace, his thoughts focused on those who interfered with his growth and instigated this confrontation. The imposing architecture of the palace suggests the gravity of the situation. The Camellia Palace stands tall and imposing, bathed in sunlight. The grand facade hints at the power and influence within its walls. Remington suggests they enter the palace, his expression indicating he's ready for what lies ahead. Theo simply agrees, his focus seemingly elsewhere. Remington and Theo walk towards the entrance of the palace, their shadows stretching before them. Remington informs Theo that Axion will personally greet them. As they walk, Theo deduces Axion's motives for the invitation. He believes Axion is attempting to halt his progress, his expression hardening with resolve. Theo vows to make Axion understand who he's trying to trample on, his determination clear. The sharp angle of his profile emphasizes his resolve. A close-up of Theo's eye reveals a steely gaze. The glint of light on his earring adds a touch of elegance to his fierce expression. Theo spots a blue light emanating from a window in the palace. He questions its nature, wondering if it's related to a quest. Remington calls out to Theo, seemingly interrupting his thoughts. Theo's expression suggests a mix of annoyance and suspicion. Suddenly, a cloud of white powder erupts, obscuring the scene. Remington reacts with surprise, setting a tone of confusion and sudden action. Remington calls out to Theo again, his concern evident as he looks back at the cloud of powder. The swirling dust creates a sense of disorientation. Stepping out of the dust cloud, Theo calmly states that he is fine. The focus on his boot and the scattered dust add to the sense of calm after the sudden event. Theo reveals the powder to be flour, questioning Remington's actions. Remington looks back, covered in flour, creating a humorous contrast to the previous tension. Dusting himself off, Theo remarks that he wouldn't have been caught off guard in his previous life. He implies a newfound awareness and improved reflexes. Remington, now identified with a profile box, stands covered in flour, confused by the unexpected flour attack. The profile box provides his name, age, and a brief description of his current state. Theo continues walking, contemplating the flower attack, and wondering who would resort to such a tactic. The ascending perspective draws the eye upwards, symbolizing his ambition. Looking down from a window above, 3 figures observe Theo with amused expressions. They appear to be the culprits behind the flower prank. Remington insists that the flower was a harmless gesture, basic courtesy between friends. He raises his voice, emphasizing his point. Axion approaches, his face contorted in a sinister grin, asking if Theo is angry. The dark background and sharp shadows emphasize the threatening aura. Axion, introduced with a profile box, leans in towards Theo, his malicious grin widening. He dismisses the incident as a brotherly greeting. Theo, looking up towards the sky, takes a moment to process the interaction. The light snowfall adds a touch of serenity to the otherwise tense atmosphere. A close-up of Theo's mouth shows a subtle smirk. The light snowfall continues, creating a sense of anticipation. Axion, seemingly surprised, thanks Theo. Theo's unexpected response leaves him momentarily speechless. Theo thanks Axion for the welcoming, and expresses his anticipation for the party. His sarcastic tone and confident demeanor seem to unsettle Axion. Axion's expression darkens, his amusement fading as he observes Theo's reaction. He seems intrigued by Theo's unexpected change in behavior. Axion remarks on Theo's newfound boldness and implies that he hadn't seen this side of him before. His malicious smile hints at a growing interest in Theo. Two men engage in casual conversation, one holding a glass of red liquid. What could it be? The relaxed atmosphere suggests a social gathering. Guests mingle and converse in a grand hall, the scene showcasing the elegance and formality of the banquet. The red carpet and ornate furnishings add to the luxurious ambiance. Two men discuss Axion's motives for inviting Theo, questioning his intentions. The obscured face of one of the speakers adds to the sense of mystery. Two individuals walk across the red carpet, their footsteps echoing in the hall. The dialogue suggests they are discussing Axion's lineage and his invitation to Theo. Theo and Remington enter the hall and are observed by other guests. The dialogue reveals that someone is treating Theo like a toy. Remington apologizes to Theo for the earlier incident. He attempts to explain that such behavior is unusual. Theo responds graciously, expressing gratitude rather than anger. Our hero, looking at Remington with a sharp gaze, encourages the others to badmouth him. His internal monologue reveals a cunning plan to use their insults against them later. Theo mentions the blue light he saw outside and expresses his suspicion that it's related to a quest. He contemplates how to approach the situation. Theo sips his drink, his eyes focused on something beyond the glass. The light reflecting off the ice cubes adds a touch of sparkle. Axion approaches Theo, his name spoken with a mix of surprise and recognition. The dark suit and flowing cape add to his imposing presence. Theo tells himself to stay calm and stick to his plan. The background suggests the bustling banquet hall, creating a contrast with his internal focus. Axion apologizes for the earlier incident, admitting he went overboard. Theo accepts the apology graciously, maintaining his composed facade. Axion leans in close, asking Theo to accept his apology. His expression a mix of mock sincerity and menace. Theo's expression remains unreadable. Remington reacts with alarm as Axion apologizes to Theo. Theo calmly questions the reason for the apology. Remington appears confused, his expression questioning Axion's sudden change of heart. The focus on his eyes highlights his surprise and bewilderment. Theo pointedly reminds Axion of the greeting he received earlier, his subtle smirk hinting at his underlying intentions. Axion's expression remains unreadable. Axion looks at Theo with an inquisitive expression. The close-up on his face emphasizes his curiosity and suspicion. Axion exclaims with mock surprise at Theo's changed demeanor, commenting on how fun he has become. He grabs Theo's shoulder, feigning camaraderie. The onlookers observe Theo and Axion's interaction, with one commenting on Theo's transformation. One of the observing guests remarks on how much they are liking Theo, their sinister smile suggesting ulterior motives. The observing guests gossip about Theo, labeling him as Axion's bad girl. Axion puts his arm around Theo, continuing his charade of friendship. The onlookers continue to gossip, highlighting the social dynamics at play. Theo, with a serene expression, appears unfazed by the surrounding gossip. The close-up on his face emphasizes his composure. The onlookers question Remington's fawning behavior towards Theo. The scene zooms in on them, highlighting their exaggerated expression. The conversation shifts to Remington's legitimacy, prompting a warning to be careful with words. Remington turns away, acknowledging the sensitive nature of the topic. The dark colors and shadows emphasize the secrecy surrounding his past. Theo, his eyes narrowed, decides to act sooner than planned. The scene focuses on his intense gaze, highlighting his change in strategy. Axion leans in towards Theo, casually mentioning his name. Remington watches from the side, his expression concerned. Theo declares his intention to greet his new friends, his smile suggesting something far from amicable. He holds a drink in his hand, a stark contrast to the impending violence. Theo walks across the red carpet, observed by Remington and another guest. The scene sets the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Theo's gloved hand grabs a bottle of wine. The focus on this action foreshadows a dramatic turn of events. Theo offers the bottle of wine to another guest, appearing polite and courteous. He wonders if he said something wrong, setting up a dramatic irony. In a sudden burst of violence, Theo smashes the bottle against the guest's head. The impact is emphasized by the radiating lines and flying shards of glass. Remington and Axion react with shock to Theo's sudden act of violence. The close-ups on their faces emphasize their surprise and disbelief. Theo stands over the injured guest, blood dripping from the broken bottle in his hand. The scene highlights the sudden shift in tone from polite conversation to brutal violence. The injured guest curses Theo, his face covered in blood. The scene focuses on his anger and disbelief. Theo delivers a swift kick to the injured guest's head. The motion lines emphasize the force of the blow. The main hero, walking away from the scene, questions the use of the word bastard. The scene highlights his cold indifference to the violence he just inflicted. The injured guest coughs up blood as Theo continues his departure. The scene emphasizes the brutality of the attack and Theo's lack of remorse. Two other guests react with confusion and shock to the sudden violence. The tutorial quest notification in the corner of the panel tracks Theo's progress in escaping the label Imbecile of Ragnar. Remington expresses his belief that Theo wouldn't normally act in such a way. The scene highlights his confusion and attempts to reconcile Theo's actions with his previous demeanor. Theo declares he has given his welcome greeting. The scene focuses on his back as he turns away, leaving the aftermath of his actions behind. A gloved hand slams down on the table, the force of the impact emphasized by the motion lines. The scene creates a sense of finality and aggression. Theo stands over the injured guest, preparing to deliver a final blow. He coldly states his intention to say goodbye. The injured guest pleads for mercy, his face contorted in fear. The close-up on his expression emphasizes the terror of the moment. Theo's hand glows with an ominous light as he prepares to strike. The close-up on his hand and the intensified red color suggests the use of supernatural power. Two more guests react with horror to the escalating violence. One of them clutches a drawn weapon, indicating their readiness to intervene. Axion and Remington react with a mixture of shock and anger to Theo's brutality. The close-ups on their faces emphasize their intense emotions. The tutorial quest notification updates, reflecting Theo's progress in escaping the imbecile label. The blue glow of the notification contrasts with the tense atmosphere. The injured guest cries out in pain. The tutorial quest notification updates again, further tracking Theo's progress. Theo looks around the hall, asking if anyone else wants to say hello. His casual tone and predatory gaze create a chilling effect. The guests draw their swords ready to defend themselves. The glinting steel adds to the sense of danger. Theo's expression grim. The crossed blades and dynamic lines highlight the tension of the current situation. Theo declares that anyone who harms him will pay with their lives. He affirms that this is how it should be, embracing the violence. One of the guests identifies the injured noble as the third young master of the Hanavi clan. The scene provides context for the escalating conflict and introduces a new faction. Theo recognizes the Hanavi clan as one of the 6 snow clans that support the Ragnar clan. The close-up on his face highlights his realization of the gravity of the situation. Our hero faces off against members of the Hanavi clan, their swords at the ready. He questions their intentions, seemingly unfazed by their presence. One of Theo's opponents looks at him with surprise and confusion. The close-up on his face highlights his bewilderment. Theo challenges his opponents to take responsibility for their actions, his eyes glowing with an ominous red light. The dark, ominous aura surrounding him suggests a hidden power. 4 guests react with alarm, their expressions filled with fear and uncertainty. The purplish tones continue to add a sense of unease and impending danger. Theo's opponents feel a sudden surge of pressure. The scene emphasizes the power emanating from Theo, suggesting he's stronger than they anticipated. One of the Hanavi clan members observes Theo with a look of fear and surprise. The dialogue highlights Theo's claim to the right of succession and his direct bloodline to Ragnar. The figure of a lordly individual sits in shadow, manipulating chess pieces. The scene represents the power dynamics at play and foreshadows the potential consequences of Theo's actions. A chess piece is struck forcefully, symbolizing a decisive action against the blood of that dragon. The scene emphasizes the severity of the situation. Theo threatens the Hanavi clan member, the scene highlighting the potential for clan-wide destruction as a consequence of their actions. The close-up on his face and the angle of the sword emphasize the threat. One of Theo's opponents expresses his shock and recognition of the consequences of insulting a Ragnar. The scene highlights the long-standing tradition of severe punishment for such an offense. A bright flash of light cuts through the panel, representing a swift and deadly attack. The motion lines emphasize the speed and power of the strike. Theo's opponents are struck down, blood splattering across the panel. The dynamic angles and dark tones emphasize the brutality of the scene. Theo turns away from the carnage, his expression stoic. The scene highlights his cold indifference to the violence. One of Theo's companions draws their sword, ready for further combat. The glint of steel and the dramatic lighting add to the sense of danger. Theo's companion runs across the red carpet, leaving a trail of motion blur. The scene emphasizes the swiftness of their actions. Theo's companion, sword drawn, stands over one of the fallen opponents. The scene highlights the aftermath of the violence and the ongoing threat. Remington and other guests look on in horror as the tutorial quest notification updates. The scene emphasizes the escalating violence and the guests' growing fear. Axion observes the scene, his expression unreadable. The close-up on his face highlights his intrigue and curiosity about Theo's actions. The pink-haired individual, now identified as Evelyn, appears, questioning when Theo realized she was following him. The scene introduces a new layer of intrigue and suggests a hidden agenda. Theo, arms crossed, calmly responds that it was a given. The scene emphasizes his confidence and awareness. Theo thinks to himself, expressing his gratitude for Evelyn's presence as it allows him to act without worry. The scene reveals his cunning and strategic thinking. Remington stands amidst the fallen bodies, his sword drawn. The scene highlights the aftermath of the violence and Remington's role in protecting Theo. A little earlier, the scarred veteran confronts Evelyn, commenting on her retirement from taking disciples. He holds a bottle and a cigar, showcasing his relaxed demeanor. Evelyn, her arms crossed, questions the scarred veteran's presence. The scene establishes a tense dynamic between the two. The scarred veteran continues to question Evelyn, his tone suggestive and challenging. He mentions tormenting her as his recent joy, adding a layer of malice to their interaction. The scarred veteran takes a swig from his bottle, waiting for Evelyn's answer. Evelyn notes the expensiveness of something, potentially referring to the beverage or something else entirely. The scarred veteran continues to press Evelyn for an answer, taking another drink. Evelyn sighs, seemingly giving up on whatever she was about to propose. The scarred veteran praises Theo's abilities, claiming he's the best among his students. He takes a large gulp from his bottle, highlighting his enjoyment of the drink. Evelyn remarks on Theo's potential, claiming it surpasses even Axion's. The close-up on her face emphasizes the significance of her statement. The scarred veteran acknowledges Evelyn's sharp eye for talent, implying a shared history or understanding between them. He takes another drink, his expression suggesting intrigue. The scarred veteran and Evelyn discuss Theo's hidden strength and his sudden display of power. Evelyn seems concerned about the drastic change in Theo's behavior. Evelyn expresses her concern about Theo's sudden change, questioning the possibility of such a drastic transformation. The close-up on her face emphasizes her suspicion. Evelyn observes the scene, noting that Theo seems to be chasing something. She suggests Axion is the source of his motivation. The scarred veteran places his bottle on the table, suggesting that Evelyn should follow Theo. The scene focuses on the bottle, symbolizing the end of their conversation. The man advises Evelyn to follow and tempt Theo. Evelyn questions his meaning, setting up a sense of anticipation. The scarred veteran suggests that something will happen, and that Evelyn should use the opportunity to tempt Theo. His grin suggests ulterior motives. The man places a folded garment on the table, suggesting a plan involving Theo and the white-armored dragon cavalry. The scene hints at manipulation and recruitment. Evelyn listens attentively to the scarred veteran's plan, her eyes wide with surprise. The scene highlights the unfolding plot. The scarred veteran explains his plan to have Evelyn tempt Theo and recruit him into the white-armored dragon cavalry. The scene emphasizes the manipulation and strategic maneuvering behind the scenes. The scarred veteran challenges Evelyn's decision to retire, his expression mocking and provocative. The blue lighting and dynamic lines add to the tension. The bottle of wine sits on the table next to the folded garment. Evelyn's final comment adds a touch of cynicism to the scene. The camera pans out, revealing the grand scale of the palace and its surrounding structures. The scene emphasizes the vastness of the setting and the power dynamics at play. Back to the grand hall. Evelyn stands amidst the fallen bodies, sword in hand. The scene emphasizes the aftermath of the violence and her role in observing the events. Evelyn deduces that Theo noticed she was following him and orchestrated the entire situation on purpose. The scene highlights Theo's cunning and strategic mind. Evelyn observes Theo's departing carriage from a distance, realizing that he is not ordinary. The scene emphasizes Theo's mysterious nature and his growing power. Theo, sitting in the carriage, reveals that he sensed Evelyn's presence from the moment she got in. The scene confirms his heightened awareness and supernatural abilities. Theo explains his ability to sense Evelyn due to his dragon heart, which grants him enhanced perception. The glowing blue heart emphasizes the supernatural element. Theo addresses Evelyn, his tone serious and commanding. He declares that the stage is set, hinting at further developments to come. Theo questions the punishment for disrespecting a successor candidate. The scene focuses on his figure, emphasizing his authority. Two guests react with shock and confusion to Theo's question. The scene highlights the tension and uncertainty in the room. Evelyn explains that, depending on clan laws, immediate execution is a possibility. The close-up on her face emphasizes the severity of the situation. Evelyn draws her sword, ready to carry out a sentence. The scene focuses on her determined expression and the bloody blade. Theo smirks, seemingly pleased with the turn of events. The close-up on his mouth highlights his amusement and ruthlessness. Theo instructs his companion to disarm and restrain the remaining opponents. Two of the guests pled for mercy, their faces contorted in fear. The scene emphasizes the desperation of their situation. Evelyn quickly strikes down the remaining opponents, the tutorial quest notification updating as she progresses. The scene demonstrates the brutal efficiency of her actions. The tutorial quest notification continues to update, tracking the swift and brutal disarming of the remaining opponents. The scene emphasizes the one-sided nature of the conflict. The tutorial quest notification updates as the first daughter of the Howard clan is targeted. The scene continues to highlight the systematic dismantling of the opposition. One of the defeated guests pleads for Axion's help, his face contorted in desperation. The scene emphasizes the powerlessness of Axion's followers in the face of Theo's onslaught. Axion looks down at the pleading guest, questioning why he should help. The scene highlights his cold indifference and establishes him as a ruthless antagonist. Axion dismisses the plea for help, calling the attack a mere greeting. The scene emphasizes his twisted sense of humor and his enjoyment of violence. A young man with wide, shocked eyes looks upwards, a whispered, "WH what?" escaping his lips as a bright light shines down. He seems utterly bewildered by the sudden, unexpected event. Gripping a gleaming sword, Evelyn swings it with fierce determination. Splatters of a dark substance suggesting a violent clash. Lying on the floor, a figure cries out in pain, a dark stain spreading across his chest. Standing over him, a pink-haired figure and our hero watch the scene unfold, with the latter identified as first son of the Paring family. Theo exchanges a knowing glance with Evelyn. A sense of shared purpose hangs in the air between them. Two figures stand to a staircase, overlooking another fallen body. Theo addresses Evelyn, saying, "I never expected to meet you again like this, Evelyn. It seems like a reunion with unfortunate circumstances." A game-like interface appears, displaying Tutorial Quest number 04. Escape the title less than imbecile of Ragnar greater than, with a progress bar at 82%. This suggests a challenge the protagonist is trying to overcome. A close-up of the dark-haired man's face shows a serious expression. The accompanying text reveals that someone's actions have made it difficult even for a successor candidate to intervene. Evelyn informs Theo that she has carried out his orders. The two figures before the dark-haired man discuss the status of those whose right arms have been cut. Remington expresses concern for young Master Theo. A sinister smile spreads across the Axion's face. The text states, "The imbecile of the Rose Palace has truly changed," hinting at a significant transformation. Axion's face, contorted in a menacing grin, appears against a dark red backdrop. "I want to crush you underfoot," he declares, revealing a burning desire for revenge. Theo, starting to walk away, addresses his two companions, Evelyn and Remington, urging them to leave. The scene shifts to focus on his feet moving across the polished floor. Evelyn and Remington agree to accompany Theo, stating, "Let's go together." The trio begins to move through the hall, leaving a trail of blood and bodies behind them. A gloved hand reaches out and grabs Theo's shoulder. The close-up emphasizes the firmness of the grip. Theo bids farewell to Axion, expressing his enjoyment. The game interface reappears, showing that Tutorial Quest number 04 is now 100% complete. Finally, Axion, his expression stern, stands in the same grand hall. He receives a message, "I'll see you later." A grand building with towering spires stands against a backdrop of swirling clouds. The name Theo Ragnar is proclaimed dramatically, signifying his impact on the events. Two game-like messages appear in sequence. All tutorial quests have been completed, followed by "Now no one will call you the imbecile of Ragnar. Theo's objective has been achieved." Theo walks with Evelyn and Remington, declaring, "But my true revenge starts now." A new chapter begins. A glowing blue potion, labeled Experience Elixir, appears against a digital background. This seems to be a reward for completing the tutorial quests. Sunlight streams through the arched windows of a grand room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. This shift in setting suggests a change in scene. A woman with dark hair, dressed in formal attire, sits at a desk writing in a book. She reacts with a surprised "What?" as she is interrupted. A muscular figure stands in the doorway of the room, facing the seated woman. The tension in the air is palpable. The dark-haired woman's expression turns serious as she demands the muscular person in the doorway to repeat what he has said. A companion with longer dark hair and pale skin stands beside her, equally attentive. Under the twinkling stars, a two-story building with glowing windows stands in the night. The text identifies it as Axion's Scaled Dragon Society, connecting it to a previous mention. Inside the building, a blonde-haired man raises a glass of orange juice, or not juice. A wide grin on his face, he proposes a toast to Theo's unbelievable high society debut. Multiple hands clink glasses together in a cheerful toast. The motion blur and bright background emphasize the celebratory atmosphere. A group of people raise their glasses in a lively gathering. Evelyn and Remington are among the crowd, enjoying the festive occasion. A dark-haired person sips from a glass, a smirk playing on their lips. They remark on the situation, attributing it to Theo. The image shows the Camellia Palace, a grand, imposing structure against a twilight sky. This establishes a new location of importance. A pair of grand ornate doors swings open, suggesting someone's arrival. The motion blur adds a sense of urgency. Inside the palace, a woman with silver hair angrily confronts someone unseen. She accuses them of not only justifying a certain imbecile bastard's actions, but also allowing their people to be harmed. Axion, now with a few visible scratches on his face, responds with a simple, yes, confirming the woman's accusations. His expression remains calm despite the confrontation. The silver-haired woman berates Axion for his handling of Theo. She argues that they've given him the freedom to act recklessly. The silver-haired woman continues her angry outburst, expressing concern about the increased difficulty of their plans due to Theo's actions. Her frustration is evident. Axion stands with his back to the silver-haired woman, who looks distressed. She tells him she doesn't want to hear his excuses and orders him to reflect on his actions. Axion, his face partially obscured by shadow, receives a stern reprimand. He's told to reflect on nearly ruining their plans with his shallow enjoyment, and he sarcastically replies, "I'll keep that in mind." The silver-haired woman walks away, holding a fan to her chest. The focus on her departure highlights her anger and frustration. Still holding her fan, the silver-haired woman wonders who Theo takes after to be so impulsive. She is clearly bothered by his reckless behavior. The long silver-haired person responds to the lady with a curt, "You call that a joke?" indicating his disapproval of the situation. The man approaches the silver-haired woman, advising her not to be angry. He suggests that the incident might not be entirely bad, creating intrigue. Then he explains the difficulty of obtaining ownership over the Rose Palace, due to its connection to the clan head's harem. This reveals important background information about the palace and the power dynamics at play. He elaborates on the Rose Palace's situation, explaining that despite being outside the clan head's direct interests, it still enjoyed their backing. His expression is shrewd and calculating. A close-up on a hand emphasizes a clenched fist. The accompanying text, justification, suggests a plan is forming. A clenched fist is again shown, symbolizing a firm decision. This reinforces the idea of a plan being put into action. Two figures, a blonde man, Remington, and the pink-haired Evelyn, are attacked by several swords. The text reveals that Theo is becoming the representative of the Rose Palace, and someone plans to use the Scaled Dragon Society incident as justification. The silver-haired woman, holding her fan, listens intently to the proposed plan. Her focused gaze suggests she is considering the implications. The silver-haired woman reveals her reasoning for finding Theo's growing strength unsettling. She fears the increased attention the clan head would give to the Rose Palace if its influence expanded. The man continues to explain his plan, stating that by using a stronger Theo, they can legally take over the Rose Palace without any issues. His confident expression suggests he is sure of his strategy. The palace's lady turns to silver-haired person and asks how long preparations will take. Their conversation continues to focus on the details of their plan. The long silver-haired person reveals with a sly smile that preparations are already complete. This accelerates the plot and raises the stakes. The man assures the palace's lady that she will hear some uplifting news in the morning. He suggests she relax and enjoy a peaceful night. He then leans in close to the silver-haired woman, offering her an aromatic candle. The tender gesture contrasts with the ruthless plan previously discussed. Meanwhile, at the local bar, sitting at a table with a glass in hand, Remington expresses his surprise at Theo's actions. He admits he didn't know Theo cared for him so much. Remington, speaking to our hero, explains that he was talking about the Scaled Dragon Society. Theo is amused by Remington's drunken state after drinking just juice. Remington, recalling the incident with the Scaled Dragon Society, describes how Theo defended him against insults. He stands behind Theo, who has his back to the aggressor. Remington reflects on the surprising nature of Theo's actions. Finding him more and more surprising, he appears contemplative. Theo listens to Remington's story, taking a sip from his drink. Remington describes the hardships Theo endured, being looked down upon and seen as untalented. After that, Remington describes how Theo secured a complete victory against the Camellia Palace. Remington is deeply touched, realizing that Theo did all this for him. A game interface displays his status, confirming he is 17 years old and deeply grateful for Theo's loyalty. Our protagonist looks bewildered, realizing Remington has misunderstood something. He has a comical expression with his tongue sticking out. Remington sets his drink down, stating he has a different idea than building friendly ties with Axion, as instructed by his clan. This introduces a new conflict and suggests independent action. Remington suddenly pledges to follow Theo. His emphatic gesture and determined expression emphasize his devotion. The surrounding patrons cheer and celebrate the declaration of loyalty between Remington and Theo. They acknowledge the bond between the two strong individuals. Theo tries to stop Remington, sensing a misunderstanding. He raises his hand in a gesture of caution. Our hero looks at Evelyn with a serious expression, thinking, telepathy. He seems surprised by something the woman has done, perhaps an unspoken communication. Evelyn raises her glass in celebration as others around her cheer. The dark-haired person watches the scene unfold, observing the interactions within the group. Evelyn, with a knowing smile, assures the main character that the misunderstanding isn't a bad thing. Two men in the background, one with dark spiky hair and the other with long dark hair, smile along with her. Remington smiles confidently. The besides in the text box above suggests Evelyn is about to add something to the conversation. Two men, one blonde and one with dark hair, share a jovial laugh, their arms around each other. The camaraderie between them is evident. Theo looks surprised as Evelyn suggests that everyone just wants to get along with him. This raises questions about Theo's true nature and intentions. Theo smiles gently, stating that he is not anyone special. His humble words contrast with the intense situations he's been involved in. Theo's status window is displayed, revealing details about his abilities and level. The text suggests that his current state might be due to the window, implying a mysterious influence. Theo ponders the nature of his current situation, wondering if it's connected to his past regrets. His contemplative expression suggests a search for answers. He mentions a vague sense of déjà vu, further deepening the mystery surrounding his transformation. Our hero concludes that whatever the source of his abilities is, it's helping him, so it doesn't matter. Theo's updated status window is shown, highlighting a level increase and changes in his stats. The text indicates that his level went up after the Scaled Dragon Society incident. Remington examines a glowing blue interface, explaining how leveling up grants points to raise stats. He stands near the counter of the bar. Theo is sitting on a stool at the bar, his face covered by his hands. He expresses fear for the future that a stronger him will bring. Evelyn stands next to him, seemingly worried. The dark-haired person, now with a determined look, decides to prepare for a counterattack against the Camellia Palace. He turns to Remington and asks for his help. Remington readily agrees to help Theo, encouraging him to ask anything. He holds a glass and looks at Theo with an eager expression. Remington reacts with surprise as Theo points out his casual use of the nickname Remy. His slightly flustered expression adds a touch of humor to the scene. A hand holds a small folded piece of paper, illuminated by a bright light. This object seems to be of significance. Our hero, holding the folded paper, asks Remington for help in preparing for the intensifying war for the throne. This solidifies the alliance between the two. Remington reacts with surprise to the dark-haired person's request. Theo holds the folded piece of paper, his expression questioning. Remington envisions his clan rising to power and confronting the Ragnars. He resolves to use this opportunity to achieve his clan's goals. A ghostly image of a lion appears, symbolizing his ambition. Theo offers the folded paper to Remington, urging him to take it. The close-up emphasizes the importance of this exchange. Remington reaches out and takes the folded paper from the main lead's outstretched hand. The focus on the exchange highlights its significance. Remington, holding the paper, agrees to help Theo with anything, having pledged his loyalty. He smiles confidently, reaffirming his commitment. Theo thanks Remington but again points out Remington's earlier casual address. His smirk suggests he's teasing Remington a little. Someone shouts Theo Ragnar's name, interrupting the conversation. Two figures appear in the background, walking towards the bar. A figure in ornate armor and a long cape enters the bar, accompanied by two similarly armored guards. Their imposing presence suggests authority. Remington, along with two others at the bar, look towards the newcomers with wide eyes. The armored figure addresses Theo Ragnar, holding a warrant for his arrest on charges of threat, assault, and intimidation. Evelyn reacts with shock and disbelief. Theo calmly tells Evelyn and Remington to calm down, raising his hand in a reassuring gesture. He appears unfazed by the arrival of the swords of law. Theo stands before the armored figure, his expression curious. He gestures for the figure to show him the warrant, wanting to examine it himself. A close-up on the warrant reveals the still wet ink, indicating it was prepared very recently. The text confirms that those who wrote it were in a hurry. Theo, accepting the validity of the warrant, agrees to go with the swords of law. His calm demeanor suggests he has a plan. Theo's hands are shown bound by shackles. This reinforces the seriousness of his arrest. Remington and the other armored guards escort Theo away. Remington calls out in concern for Theo. Our boy walks away, looking back over his shoulder with a subtle smile. He seems unconcerned despite being taken into custody. Remington and Evelyn react with surprise to Theo's actions. Their expressions suggest they are unsure of what will happen next. Remington holds up the folded piece of paper, looking at Evelyn. The scene returns to the bar moments after Theo's arrest. Give it a like and thanks for watching. See you later.